Yes, folks. This is Jeff S, aka True Knowledge, creator and host of the MCU'S YouTube channel and podcast. And yes, I fucked up and forgot to play the shit straight. Okay, now doesn't everybody feel like we're really ready now? It's just not the same without it, right? There you go. There you go. You know, I don't care. I'm never gonna get tired of that song. But either way, folks, yes, I am fucking excited. I'm stoked. I got a great fucking panel to rock with here tonight. We're doing the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review tonight, live streamed as always on the MCU'S YouTube channel podcast, where our motto is, of course, might be good, might be shit, right? I don't even need to play the video. I've got it. I got it knocked out. I've got it held down. On the panel tonight, representing the actual entertainment and contributions for the show, regular guest on the MCU's video is Jasmine. What is up, Jasmine?
Hi,
Hi. Hey, girl. On the panel tonight, he's not killing it, moderating shows, Cyberneticshark, veteran YouTuber, veteran content creator, and my soon-to-be drunk as fuck partner for Rockville, baby. Can't wait.
Yeah, how's it going, people?
That's right. We will be putting out plenty of videos on the Facebook page of us fucked up. It'll be awesome. And we'll get some titty shots, too.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Andre's the pop culture guy. What up, baby?
Hello. Greetings, Earthlings.
Can you handle the switch over from the DC animated films, or are you going to be like somehow cross it over and fucking...
Bring me to your leader?
Are you going to be calling Star-Lord Green Lantern or some shit, or Nebula Wonder Woman? Okay, I want to make sure.
No. I'm the Watcher, so I'm watching both universes.
I forgot you're the Watcher. That's right. Okay.
So
if you're the Watcher, then how are you actually here? The Watcher lives in the other dimension or whatever. I thought that's okay though.
I mean, I got my family to watch the other multiverses.
Well, maybe the actual real Watcher's watching too. I hope you are the Watcher. Kyle, the co-host, of course, and the more handsomest of the two of the True Believers Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast YouTube channel. Kyle, my good friend, it is good to have you back on the panel. It is good to know that we are still collaborating together after all this time. Obviously, I've been paying you.
Well, you know, I'm still negotiating the contract, but it is good to be back on the YouTube show that's not afraid to cross the streams.
I'm really trying to work on this whole reversing the currency from crack to actual tangible money or something, or like, something, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, they haven't perfected those exchange rates yet.
Hopefully someday they will. But hey, if it boils down to it, we can always I can always just go with Chat GDP stock, baby. It's a better buy than Disney. Anyways, folks, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is of course the cap off, the final film for the Guardians of the Galaxy of their trilogy. It's our last time that James Gunn will be ever directing a Marvel Cinematic Universe film. So I just, before we start the show, I just want to thank James Gunn very much for all the work he put in for the trilogy, all the work he did, the good work he did in the MCU. I thought he did a great job, and just say, that we're all very thankful. I know I'm very thankful to everybody in the Guardians, whatnot, and everything for giving us so much entertainment, right, and being such a big part of the first couple phases, and then even now. Of course, I will force all of you to give me an MVP from this movie and from the trilogy at some point and whatnot. You're going to have to give it to me. But folks, please do me a favor. We're going to do plugs later and whatnot and everything. Make sure you support everybody on the panel that makes individual content, like Cyberneticshark. We'd like to hit 1,000 subs, maybe here soon, right? Be nice. So you can catch fire, you know what I'm saying? And then get like 4,000 in like 2 weeks. And do me a favor. You can sub, but more than anything, just hit that ring that bell so you're notified when we're live. And you can come fucking join us, man. Engage, say hello. Get into it. Actually participate, right? Instead of just sitting there like I see you right now. Anyways, maybe it's since I'm so attractive, they don't want to talk. I don't know. Either way, but yeah, ring that bell. We appreciate all of you that support us. We hit 20K subscribers soon. Thank you very much. So let's do the fucking show, baby. Let's get it. All right, right off the bat, guys. I'm gonna do something different for once. What a surprise! I want ratings first, right? We'll do the review and then we'll end it, and I'll come back to everybody and whatnot, and let's see how the effect of the actual review and the discussion flows, and we'll see how that affects the ratings. I think that'll be an interesting little wrinkle to throw in. So I'm gonna start with you, Kyle. Off the cuff, I want a quick, give me a 1 to 10 on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
I'd give it a solid 8.
Okay. Did not what I expected from you, but that's good though. I don't care about that. Jasmine?
Yeah.
I love it, Jasmine. You're awesome. I'm asking for your rating for the movie, sweetheart, because I'm doing this really unique,
7.
profound. Okay, there we go. 7. Thank you, dear. I appreciate it. You're so quick. I love it. Cyberneticshark, my friend. What do you got?
5.
Oh fuck. Thank you, Cyber. Love you. Love you. As my fucking as my cringe fucking level surges. Pop culture guy, what up? What you got?
9.
He's all staggered by Cyberneticshark's 5. He was like, oh.
9 out of 10 for me. Best movie ever of 2023 so far for me.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Until the TV series Willow season 2 comes out and blows it away, right?
No, Spider-Verse will be the next one. Don't ever put Willow.
Willow will be on the Hallmark Channel for season 2. Anyways, or Fuse or something. But no, so all right, well, we'll see how this goes. Maybe by the end of the show, Cyber will bump it up to a 5.5. We'll see. But now here's the question, of course. Folks, I'll start with you, Cyber. Before we even boil down and break into the film, what do the Guardians of the Galaxy mean to you overall in terms of the 2 films preceding this volume 3 that we're reviewing, and then their impact on Infinity War and Endgame?
I mean, they were a really great ragtag group of characters. Absolutely loved what they brought to life, with the first 2 films. The holiday special was really fun. Their impact on, of course, Infinity War was very, intricate to the plot line, if you think about it, because Star-Lord, really, that kind of screwed them over on getting the, Infinity Gauntlet off of Thanos' hand. If he hadn't let his motions get to him, maybe it would have been a completely different story. But if we hadn't had him do that, then we wouldn't have gone into Endgame. So, I mean, they were a big part of Infinity War and kind of like the very end of Endgame. We briefly got them, of course, in Thor: Love and Thunder. We had that brief kind of moment with Thor. And, all in all, they were just really fun characters that, I thought really grew and really developed over the several movies they were in. And I really enjoyed all their growths and stuff like that. Especially Nebula. I absolutely loved how Nebula grew by this 3rd volume. I absolutely love what Kieran Gillian did with the character. I love how Mantis grew in the last couple of films. And I think, kind of going out with a bang for Bautista as Drax. I think he did a fantastic job, too, as well. I love Chris Pratt for playing Star-Lord. I've always liked him. I always will like him as Star-Lord. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him in the future. And but all in all, I think that their impact on, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a good one. It's been a really good and great pleasure to have them a part of the Cinematic Universe up to this point. And hopefully, some of the other characters besides Star-Lord we'll get to see again, in further projects. But even if we just get one of them to return, that'll be great. I'd be happy with that. And overall, really, just a great, bunch of characters that have been really enjoyable to watch over the last 10 years.
And just guys, just to give you something to ruminate over time, I am going to be asking you at some point here, what, I guess, who you think out of everybody in the Guardians sort of had the biggest evolution, right? At some point, throughout the films and whatnot, who you really felt personally, you felt really evolved, to a point where that to an impact level that's above anybody else, I guess, right? I just wanted to put that out there. That is one thing I will give you right now to put, kind of just to give you a chance to kind of maybe think about it a little bit, as I'm like asking you questions. Anyway, so Andres, what did the Guardians of the Galaxy mean to you?
Oh my god. Uh, I think the Guardians of the Galaxy, just like the Avengers, it like simplify the Marvel cosmic uh to mainstream. Like the Avengers back in 2012 was like the how you say, it legitimized superhero genre for mainstream. And Guardians of the Galaxy, for me, really brought something that we were missing in the superhero movies was cosmic films. Yes, we had the two Fantastic films and Green Lantern, but they were not cosmic films. They were like half cosmic and then Earthbound. Where Guardians of the Galaxy, the first two, I mean, the whole trilogy is full on cosmic superhero, adventures, which we all wanted to see. And when this was announced, we were just, I mean, I was shocked that they did this, but yeah, it paid off. And I think the Guardians of the Galaxy are the most popular team after the Avengers because they legitimize the cosmic side of superhero things, and Marvel universe. Without them, like you don't get Thor, Ragnarok, Love and Thunder. You don't get Captain Marvel. You don't get Infinity War Endgame because
How do you know I wanted Love and Thunder?
well, hey, I mean, people just like Love and Thunder, but Infinity War and Endgame, like those movies couldn't work without the Guardians films. So it's good that we got the Guardians, to set up the cosmic stuff. So yeah, I really love this team, and I will always remember seeing this movie with my dad for the first time, and it was really great. And it was the Star Wars of our generation before Force Awakens came out the year after this. That's another thing. Guardians of the Galaxy are the superhero Star Wars for this generation, and I think this trilogy is the peak what Star Wars should have been in that sequel trilogy.
I'm really glad you mentioned that with your dad. That's very touching. God bless his, God, God bless his soul. I'm glad you shared that. And honestly, I'll tell you, I've told Siren before in the past. I've always wanted to eventually do at some point some kind of show where we do I do or somebody, we have people on and just have them talk about these connections with their children or their family members or their fathers or their mothers, whatnot, through the MCU, like how Endgame or certain films, really in some way just help them in a relationship or in a bad part in their life or something like that. I've always wanted to kind of touch on that and actually have those discussions too. To tell you the truth. Just lighten things up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think
I relate to Star-Lord now, like with his mom, what happened to her and all that. So yeah, I agree. Sorry to cut off.
I can't relate to him. I've never had sex with anybody that had green skin. So personally, I've never done it. Not yet, anyway. Jasmine, my dear, what did the Guardians of the Galaxy mean to you?
Guardians of the Galaxy overall just meant family, overall connection, just finding your own made family, not biological family, but your made family, a family that you find throughout growing up and or adventure or tribulation or just an overall self-discovery or rebuilding yourself. And I see each one of them were broken in a different way, and as in coming together they were able to mend those broken pieces in order to finally heal. And that was the overall arc of the entire series, basically.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much. You asked me what it meant
Holy
to
shit.
me.
Jesus Christ, that was short. I didn't expect that. All right. It's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just surprised. It's fine though. Kyle.
So Guardians of the Galaxy represent to me the MCU movie franchise that should have not worked, and yet it did. When the first Guardians came out, I was excited about it because I was a big fan of the Dan Abnett and the Landing run that was currently running in Marvel at the time the first series came out, and I kept telling people, if they do this right, this is going to be great. And it represents, I think, too, how powerful Marvel Studios is and how powerful the MCU is to take these very completely obscure characters compared to everybody else they had done up to that point and make them, in my opinion, maybe the most popular characters to come out of the MCU. And also the fact that they are the most, they're characters that I think the average fan can identify with because they're all flawed in one way or another. It's kind of hard to be able to identify with multimillionaire Tony Stark. It's kind of hard to identify with Mr. All-American Captain America, but the Guardians of the Galaxy are the characters that I think the fans can truly relate with because they all have their flaws, they all have their deficiencies, but when you bring them together as a whole, that's what makes them unique. You add in the fact that I think I'm not a huge fan of the second film, but the first and the one we're going to talk about too tonight, I think are both outstanding films. And I think you take the phenomenon that the Guardians of the Galaxy have become with successful marketing, cartoon shows, seeing these characters in national advertisements, they hit everything perfectly. And I truly think if you were to take a look at it, the Guardians of the Galaxy films and their appearances in the other Marvel films, they're the heart of the MCU.
Okay. You know what? And hey, I like the way that sounds. And I mean, I never really thought about it that way, but I guess you're probably right in a way because just like, Andres and Jasmine and I are talking about in the private chat or whatever, like Jasmine mentioned, they're a family, right? You know what I mean? Like, and for me, I thought that like, one of the things I found really touching about it, the whole thing was how they really demonstrated in the film, the growth of the family, right? The growth of the family. They really expressed it very clearly. They did it very well, I thought. Right? What the time together, how they all meant to each other, what they meant to each other over time. I thought it was very well done, and we'll flush that out. We will. Go ahead, Andres. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to bring up the family thing as well, and what Kyle say about the heart of the MCU, because quickly, like they're literally the Fantastic Four for the MCU before they actually got the Fantastic Four. Like if you think about it, this is like the MCU's first family of superhero team before we got the Fantastic Four, because, if you know your Marvel history, Marvel's start as the comic universe was Fantastic Four, a cosmic superhero family team. And that's what the Guardians did so successfully over these last 9 years. Next year is going to be the 10th anniversary for the first film. So that's the thing I like about the Guardians. Like they're like a family that they're so dysfunctional, just like the Fantastic Four, and and you see them growing as a family, which is great, and especially Volume 3.
Okay, well put. So at that point, as far as the actual Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 goes, now we'll flush out some of the more, like, I guess you could say, like, analytical or like the impact of like the box office and the numbers and whatnot in terms of the MCU itself later on and whatnot. We won't ruminate on that very long. But I don't really feel that it's necessary. But I will put it out there that of course word of mouth is very important right now, right? The film did not do as well box office wise as maybe we hoped, or some of us hoped. At least I did. It did not meet its projections at all. In terms of what, again, what they thought it would do, especially considering the spot, in May and where it's at, where they placed the release of the film. But I want to believe, and I do believe, and I want to be optimistic and believe that, folks, you out there that have not seen the film yet or whatever, when you see this, or when you catch us live, when you see this video tomorrow or the next day or Saturday, please, it's a good movie. Go spend your money and walk away and feel like it was worth spending it, because it's a good movie, regardless of Cyber's 5. Don't let that fuck you up. All right, I promise.
I think, hey Jeff, I think part of the reason why the projections have been off too is because I don't think these people who make these projections have really gotten a feel for what going back to the movies is yet, and what people are doing since COVID, because I've seen way too many times where their projections have been off, and I'm talking way off. I mean, I look at both sides of it. They had low projections for Super Mario Brothers, and it's over $1 billion now. And there's movies that they had higher projections on that they haven't hit those projections, but that doesn't mean they're still doing bad. I think there's some aspects in that they haven't figured out the weight of yet.
That's
so
exactly
that's part of the reason why.
I agree with you. That's exactly why I said we're not going to ruminate over for a minute, for more than a minute, because I don't even think it's all that like important to talk about, to be honest with you. I just went over it with Gerald Glassford of the Pop Culture Cosmos the other night. He literally, basically his premise was that like this movie is the movie. It's the critical movie where it's like, if this one doesn't fucking do it financially for Disney, then there's gonna be some real fucking shit gonna go down, change wise and whatnot, and everything. That's his belief. And I was like, well, I think the word of the mouth the next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be enough to like bring people to the theater to watch this shit. But you're right, Kyle. They don't take into consideration the fact that some people are just not going to go back to the theater for a long time after what happened. I don't think they will.
Yeah.
Or maybe, you can just buy the stuff off the TV.
Yeah. I think I think for out of the phase 4 and phase 5 of the movies, I think this one hasn't been the most divided. This has been so far universally agreed upon that is really great. So I think it's going to perform well. Like, just remember, the Guardians of the Galaxy IP is not like the very high IPs of superhero franchise like Batman or the Avengers. So their openings are just different. From other franchise. So I just want to make that clear. And also, like the last movie we got from the Guardians came out 5 years ago. So despite their MCU appearance, you have to remember that there's between, and so people are a little like behind what's going on. But I think this is going to be fine. It's already crossing 300 billion. That's a good sign that it's actually doing good. Where compared to Ant-Man 3, that was really doing bad because it needed to cross 800 or 700 to break even with its budget. So I think the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is doing fine right now, So
those are valid points. I agree. I think you make some very, very valid points. Cyber, Jasmine, while we're on this for a second, do you want to chime in?
I'll chime in. Personally, the movies, like I was saying in the chat, my score's changed. I'd see it more of a 6 because out of
give me the score at the end.
Just the overall film in itself, I can see why their early projections are saying it's low. Just I agree with Kyle when he says that it's different with people post-COVID about going to the movie theater, and going back for a rewatch. It really depends on the IP, because I know that like some movies did a lot better that first weekend or whatever because of due to the IP in which it was, and word of mouth. And since a lot of films these days are either critic based or Twitter based, it really depends on word of mouth and how fans speak about the film. And in particularly, I think this movie's overhyped.
Okay.
Not in a bad way. I just feel like people are saying it's the best thing since Endgame or best thing since Phase 4. And it's like, not all of Phase 4 was bad. A lot of it is, not everyone's cup of tea.
Jasmine, don't forget that just saying that it's the best movie I've seen since Endgame doesn't mean that everything in Phase 4 was bad.
No, not you. I'm saying in general. I've heard a lot of people on Twitter say it. It's not just you. It's everybody on Twitter saying it, and they're getting into arguments over it. And I'm like, it's a good film. I have nothing against it. It just, it's like maybe top 5, but it's not my top 3,
Well, I'll pay you $50 to leave Twitter.
No, thank you. I like it.
Okay. Anyways, so the movie starts off, right? As we, basically all of you, I'm assuming that, you're not watching this if you don't want spoilers. It's it goes very quickly. It almost, I don't want to say that it sort of like, it comes right off of the holiday special, but we start right off with nowhere and everything, and they're just going about their business. And Adam Warlock very impressively jumps right in and just like, looks great from jump. Like we don't hear him talk at first. Like, he was very impressive, I thought, to be honest with you. Just to put it out there, I thought he was great. Ben Poulter looked good. He did in the role. And he just comes in basically and, they do kind of, demonstrate that Star-Lord's very depressed and everything and whatnot about the Gamora situation. He's drinking, everything and whatnot, he's like, just, down. He's very somber, and essentially right from jump, they're attacked. And Adam Warlock, which I would hope he would, overpowers them, right? Nobody can really go toe to toe with him. He beats the shit out of Drax, and he drops that punch on Nebula. They showed the trailer, which I'm glad they kept in. And, although surprised they did. And essentially, he ends up, basically, I guess you could say, sort of wounding Rocket, right?
Due to technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties, people. Oh, yeah. Don't we just love that? But yeah, Guardians Volume 3, people, yes.
Hey, you should bring up the opening titles for this movie. Like, instead of having the all the MCU films, they had all the Guardians in the opening Marvel Studios logo. That was really cool. So I just want to bring that up.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate you jumping in there and whatnot. Everything. I have no idea why that happened.
Yeah.
I guess when my microphone cord dropped off my mic, it somehow reset everything for me. Why? I don't know why, but it did. That's strange. Either way, let me make sure I'm actually out there. Nope, I'm not even on the ATR USB microphone on the MacBook. There we go. All right, now as I was saying, Rocket basically gets burned. He gets, he essentially gets wounded, and it sort of sets off a kill switch that was inserted to, into him by a company called, Orgo Corp. They embedded it in him, and it's only basically Nebula that's able to eventually kind of like get Adam Warlock to bounce when she basically takes Drax's like sort of energy sword, and while he's on top of Drax, she just straight stabs him, right? And I think he says something like, "You stabbed me," or something like, "You just stabbed me," or something like that, and whatnot, and everything, right? Which I thought was kind of weird, but good scene. At that point, basically, everybody, the Guardians, and you really see the family aspect because everyone's very concerned. Rocket's dying, basically. He's unconscious. And as they're sort of like trying to decide how they're going to handle this, and they're investigating and trying to determine what's going on, essentially, we see Rocket start to kind of like, I guess, have nightmares or dreams, sort of, in some way, I guess, and recall basically like his whole sort of, that's when we get his origin story, essentially. And that's the part where things do get a little bit emotional, I guess, for some people. When I get it, we do see, of course, some really sad stuff in terms of, right from jump, just, his first experience with, essentially, Dr. Herbert Edward Wyndham, or, the High Evolutionary. And essentially, he's caged, and he meets his friends in the cages and whatnot. That shit is sad, man. It really is. It's very sad. But also very cute. And like, there's also some very touchy moments. And at that point right there, I believe, you do see, I think during that whole, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but I think you either do see either there or very soon later, you do see a really touching scene where Lila, when he's first put in his cage, Lila takes the rag, right, and licks it and whatnot and everything, right, and sort of like tries to make him feel better with this, because he's been branded. And he says his first word, and it says, he says hurts or whatever, whatnot. And it was sad. It really was. But at the same time, Gunn designed it in a way where he counters it, right? Like there are moments in those moments where there are touching things that happen that are positive. Right? Like the friendships in between, Rocket and all of his unfortunate cellmates. Who are some interesting characters. But So essentially, at that point, the Guardians have no choice, but they have to basically travel to the Argo Corps headquarters to find the override code. And at that point, we also see the High Evolutionary for the first time and find out that basically the Sovereign, are now like under his foot completely. And Adam Warlock, they explain right there in the jump, based on the High Evolutionary's decision, was removed from his cocoon too soon. I guess to sort of explain why he becomes kind of a clown for the whole film in a way, like he's sort of like a buffoon. He's like a child almost, they say, which it makes sense at that point. But either way, we kind of get our first meeting with him and whatnot as our villain for the film, and his recorders and everything and whatnot, and this whole setup on his ship, and basically at that point, the Guardians are in full on trying to save Rocket mode, and again, you see the family vibe, the concern, whatnot, everything right there. It starts right off that way. They know what they have to do. They figure out, they're going to figure out over time where they got to go, what to do. But kind of that's where things start. If I left anything out, please feel free to mention it, whatnot, and everything. Of course, the leader of the Sovereign is there, with Adam, and it's interesting, and the High Evolutionary, you do see, like, again, he basically tortures Adam Warlock for a moment, whatnot, and everything, essentially to enforce his, his leadership, and explain to her that she needs to go out and get this raccoon, whatever his tag is, label is, whatnot, because he wants him back. He's very important to him, and we'll explain why later on. But Jasmine, first thoughts on the whole introduction that I laid out right there. Anything I missed and I didn't mention, feel free to touch on it, but have at it.
The opening segment was pretty interesting. It had me very much intrigued to learn more about Rocket, and basically just seeing him sing along with the speakers was adorable, since you don't really see him do that throughout the franchise because he was always kind of a dick. And it seems like over the overall character arc of him being a dick, he's finally breaking down and his emotions underneath are being exposed. So you see him over here kind of weeping with his him singing along. And it's nice to see them building more of nowhere. I thought that was interesting. I wasn't a big fan of the what's his face? The High Evolutionary as a character. Mostly just because he's a dick. How he was doing everything to everybody, and the flashbacks. So in particularly, he did a good job at making me just be like, ugh, go away. But yeah, I think the opening segment really does well at pulling on your heartstrings, and them having to carry Star-Lord repeatedly back to his bed because he's a drunken buffoon was subtle. They did a subtle way at it because it was giving me very much flashbacks to old superhero covers where Batman's holding a dead Robin or a fallen comrade in arms being carried by their soldier buddy off the field. It was giving me very much of that, so I thought that was a cute way to open it, the film, and I'm gonna give it to somebody else so someone else can talk about more of the movie.
Cyberneticshark, you're right underneath Jasmine, right? So I might as well throw you in. What's up?
All right, so the beginning of the film is a very interesting, beginning. It's very dark. I thought that they had a very interesting style of wanting to start the film off. Definitely, foreshadowing, showing Rocket walking all around, in full form was, I thought, really well done. I really enjoyed that. The CGI has gotten so good that he really looked like he was there. He was really walking around, and that was really impressive. But I wasn't a huge fan of Rocket's backstory, him having the, basically while he's under, because of, almost dying. Having flashbacks of what it was like growing up and the environment he was growing up and stuff like that. It definitely was interesting, but I didn't feel it was very necessary because I feel over the last 2 films, I feel they've explained enough to understand where Rocket comes from. We know he was built. We know he was genetically modified. I didn't really feel like we needed that. It actually kind of funny when they started showing all the different creations of the High Evolutionary. It totally made me think of a game that was on Nintendo 64 back in the day called Biofreaks. And that's exactly the thing that came to mind when I was watching this film, was this video game. And it also made me think of the film Virus from 1998 with Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland, I think William Baldwin, and basically about alien entity that comes through as a virus and starts to assemble machine with human flesh to make zombies, basically. That's what kind of like going back and showing those flashbacks of Rocket being transformed and stuff like that, showing that he was one of a kind and stuff like that, which that I did appreciate, showing that, there's a reason why the High Evolutionary is after him. I get that point. But that beginning section of the film, which, by the way, the soundtrack for this is the worst of the 3 films, I feel. I was really blown away with how crappy the song selection was for this film. I absolutely hated it. And that beginning song, I just feel did not fit the beginning of the film at all. Unlike the previous 2, we had kind of happier, go-lucky songs. I know this is supposed to be a dark story, but still, it's Guardians. You're going to want to go out with a bang. You want to show some finesse. I don't feel they were doing that with the intro to this film. And, I think that there was so much more they could have done with it, and I had this feeling going into seeing this film, especially when I first started off watching the beginning of this film, that I had a feeling that the firing and rehiring of James Gunn was going to be an Age of Ultron disaster type of deal, where Joss Whedon basically sabotaged Age of Ultron when he made it. I feel the same feeling with James Gunn here, because I don't feel he made the exact same movie he would have made if he hadn't been fired. So that's kind of what the beginning of the film gave me, kind of that feeling when I first started watching it. And I thought that, it was interesting going back and showing these dreams that are, basically, remembrances of what happened to Rocket and leading up to them being the first time seeing the High Evolutionary, at which I don't know what everyone else's opinion is on him, but I feel this is the worst MCU villain I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't think what's his name, I forget, Chidwick, whatever his name is, I don't think he's a horrible actor, but I felt that this just was not in his wheelhouse for this character. And I think that this just wasn't a good character to bring in as a final part of the Guardians story as their main master villain. So overall, the beginning of the film was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but definitely when we get to the when they decide that they need to go and find some information at the whatever that place is called, where Nathan Fillion pops up, that is when the movie starts to get fun for me. I absolutely enjoyed that whole section. I thought it was super funny, super fun. I thought Nathan Fillion was really funny. I thought the whole look of the whole place looked really hilarious. Of course, once again, who pops up in the film? None other than James Gunn's wife. Oh, favoritism? Thank you very much. She popping up there, I was just like kind of cracking up going, oh, really? Really? It wasn't even a great role either. I mean, it was really short, and she gets shot in the leg, and I'm just like, oh, well, that was kind of pointless. Why bring her in to kill her off or injure her? I'm like, that to me was just dumb. But anyways, that whole sequence was funny as hell. I loved when Mantis made the guard guy be attracted to Drax. That was absolutely hilarious. I cracked up. And I thought the whole situation, that whole section was super funny. Mantis puts all their suits into that escape chamber. It all goes flying out. And that whole section of the film, or that little section of the film, was really fantastic. I really enjoyed that part. Is that where you stopped at that point?
Essentially,
Okay.
but honestly, on Cyber and all of you, it doesn't matter. You can, if you during your contributions, if you want to go further, a little further ahead than me, feel free. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. We're going to cover the whole film either way, so we'll do it whatever the way it happens. I don't got to model like the master. Anyways, folks, no, go ahead, Cyber. What you got?
Anyways, I was done there. I didn't want to go any further than that. But yeah, I enjoyed that sequence versus the beginning of the film. And I do have to agree that Nathan Fillion was a great addition to this film.
He's always a great addition. Are you kidding me? I loved it. And we'll discuss that very shortly. That's an excellent segment of the film. But Kyle, before I go to you, Andres, again, like I said, have at it. I mean, if it, like I know there are things I did not touch on, and I did that purposely. So you know, if you want to fill those gaps in or whatever and whatnot, feel free. I know there's things we haven't fleshed out yet that did occur during that opening. So Kyle, have at it, man.
Well, to hit some of the main points here, I think where they started off with Rocket and us getting Rocket's origin is something that he's actually been building to since he introduced Rocket in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, because you see the scene where they're going into the prison and Star-Lord is looking at what's happened to him. You hear in the second one where he talks about how he didn't ask to be pulled apart and rebuilt and pulled apart and rebuilt. And I think to actually see this is really something designed to build on the Rocket character, make us understand him a little better, even though that, yes, they've talked about it and addressed it, but to actually see it then, it really give you a different perspective on the character. So I think that was actually very well done. I've got to disagree with Cyber. I actually liked several of the music selections James Gunn did in this one compared to Volume 2. I think Volume 2 was probably the weakest of the three soundtracks. I think the use of the Space Hog song was very fit perfectly with this. I can kind of get the feeling with the creep thing opening up the film, but I think it's also very important because of where the mindset of the Guardians are at this point. You know, you've got Quill, who's lost Gamora, and also really, and they even address it in this film, dealing with the fact that he is taking responsibility for them losing to Thanos because he lost it over Gamora. You've got Rocket in a very weird place dealing with what he's dealing with, and the Guardians just trying to kind of adjust to getting to whatever life they're trying to create on Nowhere, as well as, you know, still dealing with the loss of Yondu from the second film as well. So I think that was very well done. I really like the fact that you also had this this version of Gamora who has no history with the Guardians when they brought her in to help them break into the scientific place to get the code to take out the kill switch that's in Rocket. I loved how she interacted with them, where she was in a different mindset than them and treating them differently than what they're used to, and basically being a dick to them. As Nebula makes and Peter Quill make quite clear. So I think all that was good. I loved everything in that science area. I loved the color, the way they set it up with the colors and how everything was. I need to correct you though, real quick, Cyber. That was not actually James Gunn's wife. It was the actress who played Ratcatcher in Suicide Squad. James Gunn's wife was actually the blonde from Peacemaker, who was the main law enforcement officer in that. But
she was great in Suicide Squad.
I wasn't talking about the red person.
I was talking person.
No, I was talking about the blonde gal.
Okay, sorry. Well, she gets shot in the leg too, I believe. So, but again, it's a typical James Gunn thing, like many of the other Hollywood directors out there. They bring in their group of actors that they're comfortable with, that they're friends with, whatever. There is kind of that kind of little bit of actor director nepotism, and it's been in Hollywood for a very long time. Gunn is obviously good friends with Nathan Fillion. He's been in all three Guardians films in one fashion or another, as well as several of these other actors that make appearances. So I was fine with that. I don't think that's that big of a deal because we've seen other directors do the same thing with actors they like. But I think the film overall is a good setup. As far as the High Evolutionary goes, I think they could have done a lot more with that character than what they did. But I think to use him as like the creator for Rocket, and I think they were also kind of with that character. He has a very interesting Marvel history. But I think with the MCU, they were trying to use a character that I think they knew they could kind of blow off, and people wouldn't care. I do want to hit Adam Warlock up real quickly too. I think Will Poulter looked the part very well. When you compare him to what people who are fans of the comics and know the back history of Adam Warlock, I can understand where there's been some frustration with the Adam Warlock character playing up more goofy, because it felt like for me in this movie with the Warlock character, they're basically setting him up to take over the Drax role, because we do know for a fact we're probably not going to see Dave Bautista back in the MCU, at least
We're not. He's gone. He's not coming back. No,
yeah,
done.
but he says he's done. I think there's a couple of the other actors who are done going to follow James Gunn over to DC and end up doing something over there. But you know, again, I'm not going to fault them either. They've all put in their time on this franchise, and good for them, and they've given their full effort. And that's one of these things. These things rotate out. But I would be curious to see if we get something else with Guardians, whether it's a Guardians Volume 4 or something else, if they evolve the Warlock character more into what he was in the comic books. But I think overall the movie has a very strong opening. It pulls you into what's going on, and I think from up until the point where things kind of go south after they can't get the kill switch code, and we learn about Rocket's back history and see these characters who kind of took him in when he was first going through everything. I think it adds a lot to the story for the characters, and I think it's one of the things that this movie does very well. Is it gives you great character development for the Guardians themselves across the board.
That's right. And what's up, Tax? What's up? Where'd you come from? Did you come out of your cave again for fucking, what's it been, 3 months now? No, I'm just kidding. It's good to see you. And I'm glad you thought the film was that good. I don't know if I agree with the 10 for 10, but we'll see at the end of the movie. Maybe I'll get there. We'll see. I don't know. I can be persuaded. I'll give you my Cash App in a minute. Hold on. But no, anyways, that's a good point. And I think that, I don't know, like the whole freaking thing with that Warlock and the whole, like, I don't know why it was necessary to like Cyber was saying about like why it was necessary, you know, when you talk about the high evolutionary and whatnot and everything, and how they handled the rocket stuff and whatnot to some extent. I don't understand why it was necessary to even have to induce or bring into this aspect of him being childlike or whatever and whatnot. What was the purpose of it? You know what I'm saying? Whatnot, like, why did he have to come out of the cocoon early? Why couldn't he have just been fucking like mature and an actual intimidating fucking force that, like, as some kind of counter villain, at least to some extent in the beginning of the film, like something with real, you know, really fucking savage. And so, you know,
I think what Gunn was trying to do was like there's like a lot of themes that he was trying to do, particularly every person have a second chance, and so like Adam Warlock and his arc for this film is trying to like he's still learning as a person, just like how the Guardians are when we saw them in their specific arcs in the first 2 volumes, particularly like he's like the version of Groot. Remember, like Groot was like this in Volume 2. Remember that Groot was very
Adam
different.
Warlock is not Groot.
Well, not like Groot, but more like how you say opposite of what Groot was trying to be like. Because remember, no, listen, Jeff, but I think Alan Warlock is just like I say one of those characters that doesn't understand life and doesn't understand what was going on. So we seeing how this character is like adjusting his his environment, and then of course because he's the bad guy, right? He has to he hurt Rocket. So towards the end, saving Star-Lord, of course, he got a second chance to be with a new people, with a new family, because the Sovereign Queen gets killed, and so he has no longer a family. Because we really don't know what's going on with the other Sovereign people. So, but yeah, that's the thing about with the MCU characters is like this happened the same thing with Mantis and Kraglin at first in Volume 2 when we got introduced got introduced to them. It's like, okay, what are you trying to do here? And I think it's the same thing with Alan Warlock. It's like, okay, we're getting introduced to this powerful person, and of course, as Kai would say, compared to the comics, it's it's play up as funny, and it's just sometimes you have to adjust that because this is different from the comics. So.
But yes, but I mean, but that's the thing. If you do cover with the comics, it wasn't funny, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
It was not funny. Like, I mean,
No,
seriously.
it was taking a character who's actually very serious, and I understand Marvel, the MCU probably needed to do this with the Adam Warlock character because the Adam Warlock character, realistically, in the Marvel comics, has such huge ties to Thanos, and to introduce him like that. And Gunn has gone on record. He was a huge Adam Warlock fan. He actually had a lot planned for him for Guardians Volume 2, but just felt it didn't fit into that film. And again, considering the actor you've also cast to play Adam Warlock, you're going to want to use some of his comedic talents as well. I think in this case with Warlock, they made him a punchline, and that's not that character. And again, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to see if we see this character again, which I think we will.
Oh yeah.
If they mature him up some and get him looking more realistic, because I mean they did at least write themselves a reason why Warlock was acting the way he was, that he was out of the cocoon too early. That gives an explanation that I think fans can be like, okay, well it's weak, but at least it's an explanation that works within the storyline.
Well, I'm sure Jasmine could probably trade him to fucking man out a little bit and grow some nuts, right, Jazz? You could probably straighten him out.
I don't know. Think about what?
I said you could probably straighten Adam Warlock's pussy ass out, right?
He was like 2 years old. They explained that the evolutionary took him out too early.
Oh, don't even play. You know that turns you on, right?
Ew, he's 2.
Whatever. Anyways.
So.
Andre, I was going to you next, so go ahead, man.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the beginning, I think this is. The beginning was very rough. We're trying to set up everything for the story for this film. I think the opening song for Creep from Radiohead, it's a good choice, but I think because they didn't pick the actual what do you call it, artist version of Creep.
Yeah,
this was it felt like a student version, or some remix or something. I don't know. It was weird, but it was a good pick. I think I actually like the songs in Volume 3. Now, I think it is the weakest of the soundtrack of the Guardians films. I still think the first one is strong. I think the second one is also strong in terms of the songs fitting in the storyline. Brandy is a very important song for Star-Lord because that's the thing his mom sung so many times, and it's particularly Eagle repeated that towards the end of the film, the climax and all that, and or the chain, here some songs were, it felt like it was auto, oh, we need this song in this scene, or something Do You Realize by the Flaming Lips. That was a great song pick, where Star-Lord was reflecting on his interaction with this variant Gamora. That was a great song pick, or the end, not jumping to the ending, but the Dog Days song. Great pick towards the end of the movie. Great song to end for the film. And of course, I was so happy that they brought back "Come and Get Your Love." That was great to bring that back. But yeah, it's the weakest soundtrack of the bunch. But I still like some of the picks. But still, yeah, very funny. Yeah. So I'm actually going to be the outlier here. I actually like the villain here, the High Revolution. For a couple reasons. I like that he's a person villain for Rocket. One of the things I don't like about the MCU villains is that, you don't need MCU villains to be personal connection to your your characters, but I really like how High Revolution is similar to Eagle, how Eagle was a person villain for Star-Lord. I like how the High Evolution was a person villain to Rocket, and I think that really makes sense. And I think because I liked how, first off, I like that he's an evil, an actual evil villain. I don't like when we sort of chicken out sometimes for the villains being like sympathetic, or we don't like he's just like a very over the top villain. I like that this villain was pure evil, and I like that. And we saw at hands what he did to Rocket, which we don't see a lot in villains because studios don't like are afraid to show the dark side of things. So I really appreciate that the High Evolution was a huge bad guy villain. I do have one quick trick is like did he die? The High Evolution? Because this is something.
No, he died. No one died.
Are you sure? Because his ship exploded. This is something me and my host discussed in the spoiler cast, and we were confused. Like, what the hell? Are they saving him for
No, they're
What do you
saving.
think?
If they're saving him for, they're saving him for the fucking the Skinemax B version of the film or something and whatnot. No, he's not. You're not going to see him back in the MCU.
Okay, well, because I mean, Kyle brought up how Anna Warlock was connected to Thanos. Like, you could easily make Anna Warlock connected to the High Evolution, and that's something I want to bring up. Is the High Evolution created the Sovereign. He created the Sovereign, so that was a good connection to the Volume 2. That was good. But yeah. So and speaking of Rocket, I think the flashbacks here were really great. I actually really like the finally learning why Rocket doesn't talk about this and like what happened to him was really like powerful, and I think these is the scenes where Gunn really is strong as a director. I think Gunn has like proven as a filmmaker since the Suicide Squad film. Like, like one of the complaints about Volume 2 was the jokes. I think Gunn like actually control himself. Like he put the jokes on the action scenes. Like when we get into the the Armored Corps scene that Cyber likes. Like that's a great example of great action sequence slash part of the film that has a lot of great jokes, and like that where compared to like Volume 2 with the whole was a wipe running gag was so awful in Volume 2. Here I think Gunn did a really good job of balancing the humor and the darkness compared to Volume 2. So so that was good improvement over that. But yeah, so I think I enjoyed this first act of Volume 3. I'm with Cyber that when we got to the corpse thing, it was like that's where I got to like the film more. Because like by the way, we got Anna Warlock, like no like proper introduction or like see like a ship of the a sovereign ship to see him and like talking to the sovereign queen, like just like bam, he just going to nowhere, and like that's great. Yeah, so it was great to see Nowhere as a headquarters. Like if you know your Guardians of the Galaxy history, this is finally giving Guardians the Nowhere as the headquarters, because that's the theme from the comics, which was great. So I really like how Nowhere became like a great setting for this film, because that was the big theme from the first film. So that's good. But overall, weak first act. I'm like excited to talk about the Armed Corps sequence, because that's the best thing about this film.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I guess in terms of the soundtrack and whatnot, I just love that Space song. That's all. I like that. I was whatever about the rest of it, whatnot. I was ambivalent about it. I thought this was the worst soundtrack out of the three films, without question. And we'll get into we are gonna, of course, I'm gonna ask you guys a little bit and whatnot at some point. I'm gonna ask you to kind of just give us some kind of like loose, what is your how would you order the Guardians films type deal, which I know is tough, but this is like a wolf. Thank you, Cyber. I appreciate that. Yes, really quick, Andres, you are now going to be added to with Alan to the team of people who fucks up names in the interesting and funny ways. Like he does dances with a wolf or whatever and some shit, or as a wolf or whatever instead of dances with wolves. Now we got the high revolutionary going on over here. So I'm sure you'll keep saying it. So
yeah, I know. This time, actually, I did this in my sportcast. I just call him HR. So I got to say that now. So thank you for actually doing for that. So because I was having trouble with that, I just told my co-host like I'm just gonna call him HR. It's just such a tough name to spell.
Well, just like trying to pronounce the actor's name, but Jasmine made a good point about in terms of, and we can't actually get into this at all. We've done it before, and we'll do it. I'm sure we'll end up doing it at another show at some point. But when Wanda's back in the picture or whatnot, which she will be soon, right? Scarlet Witch. The High Evolutionary does actually have a major impact to some extent. Sort of like I guess maybe sideways,
Oh,
not directly, but like sideways in terms of the fact that he was basically locked up in Mundagore Mountain or whatever and whatnot. Mundagore Martin. When the twins were born, right? And at that point, they and I'm not going to get into it. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, I think. But in terms of Plushy XDX, good name, like it, very good. Would he have to have a character arc to be more serious? Yes, I would think. That's what we were talking about before, whatnot. Everything was that, me and Kyle and other people have mentioned. In the comics, he is more serious. He is more mature. He's actually kind of serious as fuck, to be honest with you. He's very serious. That's his deal. Like he's Vision-esque,
so
like the initial Vision.
yeah, I have a question. Do you think if we made Animal like serious, like you would like the character here? Because that's my problem with Gamora. Like Gamora is like the no nonsense character in the group, and she was never my favorite because it's like how serious she was. Because compared to the other characters we have with the Guardians, they're funny, and I don't know, like I it's sort of tough because like you look at Drax, right? Like the first Guardians, like yeah, he was serious there, but the thing that what people loved about Drax in the first film and carry on throughout his his run in MCU is because he was funny, right? I I don't know, like it's sort of tough for me. Like what you do at a world like because you essentially making him be more like Vision, right? And I don't know. Go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I just think if you're gonna pull off a more serious Adam Warlock, you play that serious side up for the comic for a little bit of comedy too. You make him overly serious.
Yeah.
Yep. They could have done that. Yep.
And I think it comes across better than once he kind of realizes and what's going on and makes the save of Star-Lord. I think it actually makes it a little more impactful than this childlike being with godlike powers basically growing up. To where if you have this overzealous character, but I also think then if he's also the more serious character, because you have the High Evolutionary in here and stuff like that, he takes away some from the impact of the High Evolutionary. So I think it was a fine line to balance. I think they could have made Adam Warlock a little bit more than what he was, but I think it was one of those deals to where you have so many characters, and I think James Gunn just wanted to get that character involved in there, no matter how it came across. So
yeah,
but I would have preferred him to see it play it where it was like maybe a little bit over serious, and you mentioned Gamora, and I know we'd see. And I think what they almost did there too was an overcorrection in that they made her so serious because they were trying to make her differentiate from the Gamora we had known through the MCU to this point. And so I think they pulled a little bit of an overcorrection there with Gamora. You saw a little bit of it break towards the end of the film, but still,
Yes.
it still could have been played up a little bit different than how they had it, and not having her be so just like stick up her ass serious.
Well, you know what? That's a good point. And I didn't mention Gamora, and nobody else has either. And I didn't mention.
I disagree, but yeah.
No, Jasmine, go ahead. Please go ahead. You haven't spoken in a long time. Have at it.
Well, personally, I think she was the most comic book accurate she's been in the entire span of Guardians of the Galaxy in the films. Her being a stick up her ass is literally how she is in the comics. If you played the Guardians of the Galaxy video game, she has a stick up her ass. It's just who she is. She just exudes asshole. She may love them, she might care for them, but her and Nebula are two of the same coin. Like they're literally just assholes that don't know how to express themselves due to the lack of a loving figure, being their father being Thanos. So them being stick up their ass is kind of very much comic book accurate. And her fight scenes showed that, because it was the first time I've ever seen her fight comic book accurate at all. Like, in this film, I was literally looked on her and said, fucking finally. And it had to be the last time I see her.
They've never actually showed or focused on her actual hand-to-hand combat and like ability, knife skills, and all that. In all the other films, she's always using weapons and shit and whatnot, everything. That's how it's been. She's using blasters. She's got, it's like that, or she's in a ship or whatever.
Exactly. And it just never was the character I know from the comics. And finally, I see it. And it had to be the last time I see her. So I was a little pissed.
Well, as far as putting back in the pod goes, well, yeah, they're actually probably going to put him back in the pod and then let him out for She-Hulk season 2, where he's going to be the male, the lead male. So he'll be right on there, season 2, She-Hulk. You'll see him.
Okay.
Anyways, no, but look, I think they had to bring Gamora back. Either way, because she's a part of the family. I mean, she's a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think they brought her back because of the whole Star-Lord. I don't think that was their focus. I'm not talking about how it went down, if it went well, Kyle, or Andre, anything like that. I'm saying I don't think that was Gunn's focus was to rely on that vehicle. I think the purpose was to just bring her back into the fold because she's a part of the original Guardians. That's all.
Yeah. I was totally against having Gamora come back. But hearing Jasmine saying what she was saying, and then what my co-hosts say about how Gamora, seeing a different side of Gamora, like what if Gamora wasn't with the Guardians, and like how she reform in a different way. So like you see here, like this is again like seeing Gamora like being reformed again, but in a different way. Like, oh, her new family she's is with the Ravagers, with Stallone and that's like her Guardians of the Galaxy, because this version hasn't been with the Guardians that the other version did. So I guess that it makes sense. And as Jasmine say about comic accurate, that makes a lot of sense. I think this is definitely the most proper, badass Gamora comic accurate. But I don't know. I just felt like we didn't need to bring back Gamora after Infinity War. I don't know. It's because it just regressed too much of Pierce's arc. That's another thing. I don't know if anyone has that opinion. Like Star-Lord's arc, was kind of regressed. Was regressed from the Christmas special, and I don't know. It's just that was kind of my biggest nitpick for the film.
Well, hey, look, it played out the way it played out. We liked the holiday special; it was good.
Yeah,
we all enjoyed it, I thought, and I kind of agree. I get what you're saying, but in general, I don't find Gamora boring necessarily. Plushy DX. I just this version of Gamora I'm not very fond of. I like the evolved Gamora that like Star-Lord and more and whatnot. I did, but then again, she was kind of less effective in combat at that point too. It seemed like, but either way, let's move forward. Now the scenes, now of course we also did mention Groot. Groot is Groot as usual. All he really says is "I'm Groot," so that's all there is to talk about. But at that point, just to be clear, as far as who Dr. Howard Edward Wingdom is, he is a Oxford-educated scientist and cosmic philosopher who always had an obsession for understanding the complexities of evolution. He began his journey essentially by experimenting or exploring the mysteries of the human DNA, which led him to create a serum that transformed into the High Evolutionary. And then he just continued, seeking and adding powers and increasing his intellect through study and exploring the universe and whatnot, and studying genetics. And he ended up basically hooking up with Mr. Sinister, right?
Yes.
And hey, again, that's another story. But bottom line, again, I don't think he was the worst villain in the MCU history, but he was not good, man. I would not bring him back.
It's a typical MCU can't really get their villains right for the most part.
They do okay sometimes,
Very true. They do fuck them up all the time.
Well, hey,
they literally bring them in and kill them in the same film.
They might get I'm praying to God every day they're going to bring Ultron back. So, which I think would be great. But no. So as far as the scenes everybody loved, we might as well talk about it. Where they actually do sort of, we get more basically of the story, the backstory of Rocket and everything and whatnot. In terms of him just again recanting in his like unconscious state, as they have him basically like in like a stasis type situation, kind of in a way, I guess. Basically, they do kind of like, and some of it again is very sad, it's very emotional. In terms of like flushing out, what his life was like, like kind of as a caged experimentation, that was just a part of the cycle of, High Evolutionary wanting to put together eventually the new men or whatever it was called, and Second Earth and all that and everything, his perfect race, but are most involved. But so it was great to see Sly Stallone, but Gamora does jump, interject and actually end up teaming up, or maybe kind of begrudgingly ended up with them, with the Guardians, and whatnot. She's a Ravager now, and basically, they determine and figure out, at least, where or who the company is that they need to deal with and whatnot, to find out how to deal with this kill switch device where they can't really essentially heal Rocket, or like essentially like bring him back to health at all without essentially killing him, due to the fact that he has this sort of kill switch device implanted in him. That was done essentially by the Evolutionary. And at that point, we do see, again, we met Lila earlier. There was the Walrus Teefs and the Rabbit Floor. That were his friends. And now, the alternate version of Gamora, which are the Ravagers, like I said, helps the Guardians, and when they infiltrate, Orgo Corp, and we get Nathan Fillion and whatnot. Everything. It's really good humor. That was like I thought the funniest part of the damn film, when fucking his whole shtick with the whole like, I've got one of those. You got a retard or whatever, or you got a dunce, or I got one of those too. And he mentioned it multiple times. It was hilarious. Funny as shit. Fucking hilarious. And Star-Lord's F-bomb was dope too. But basically, we haven't mentioned Mantis either. Now, I personally love Mantis. I think that she's evolved a lot, and she's become like really Jasmine. If anything, I think she's become very comic accurate as well. Really, I think she has.
Mantis,
as far as her actual fighting abilities and whatnot, and her actual power.
Little bit. They did scrimp on the fact that she has blade, this kind of blade Mantis like appendage that comes out of her arms.
She can do a lot of shit.
Yeah, but they did scrimp on that. They kind of feminized her, I guess would be the word.
They neutered her character just for it to fit the story.
Yeah, pretty much. They dumped her down a little bit, and it's like the Drax equivalent if it was a female version, basically.
Well, and again, as we get into what I guess will probably be sort of maybe the towards the midsection of the film, kind of going over a little bit, whatnot. If not, basically, everybody knows what happens at that point, right? We get some good humor. Essentially, the Guardians are on a mission. They come in as a team. They get diverted. They end up in different groups. They get separated from each other, and throughout, we end up getting action. There's some action scenes. There's some fighting. There's a lot of good humor. There's a lot of banter. There's a lot of back and forth between the Guardians. I thought that the humor in between the different Guardians as the characters was great throughout the film. It was solid. I love Nebula. Her humor and what Karen Gillan's done with Nebula has just been excellent. She's very much become almost like the matriarch, right, of the Guardians in a way.
Yeah, just like Gamora was. So she's taking up her sister.
Yeah, but she's actually like caring, and like you can really tell she's very passionate about her feelings towards the rest of the Guardians. But basically, it's a great part of this movie. It really is. It may be the best part of the film. I think. I'm not sure, but it might be the best. Some people might say. I like the ending. Hold on, Andres. It might be the best part. It's definitely probably the most entertaining part. but essentially, there's a lot. There's you guys will explain it. But there's a lot of funny stuff that drops. And as they get separated, when they get there, essentially they end up at one point they abduct the one chick. Gamora does shoot her in the knee, and we get that weird elevator scene when everything where Star-Lord's kind of venting and like explaining the whole situation to Gamora about what happened, like to the chick that just that's like they have abducted and kidnapped to like escape at gunpoint. Watching her face throughout that whole thing when he's talking and whatnot, and they're just like chilling in the background having this conversation. Karen Gillan as Nebula that scene was great. But either way, basically as far as the whole mission goes, whatnot, everything and all that, it ends up in a situation, a dynamic where they accomplish their goal. They figure out that the High Evolutionary is who they got to deal with. They don't know where he's at. They know where he's at, but not specifically where he's at. They know where to go to fly to space-wise to go to geographically. And essentially at that point, I'll leave it to you guys. Again, the High Evolutionary at the same time, he wants basically Adam Warlock and task them. And he, of course, like I said, we see him torture a dude. That was funny too. When he fucking like zapped the guy and like vaporized him, a la Loki season 1. Man, that was hilarious. But Cyberneticshark, what are your thoughts on that whole section of the film? Obviously, I didn't want to go line to line or break down every single aspect of the scene. Feel free to fill in whatever gaps you want to, and just give me your thoughts before we go into where they actually head to Second Earth.
Okay, let's see here. So you're basically talking about them going to that planet, and then
them going on their mission and whatnot when they actually see
corpse.
Yeah, when they go to Orgocorps or whatever, whatnot, and everything, and you see them in the different Infinity Stone colored suits and all that shit, whatnot.
Yep.
Right, that whole deal, and whatnot, and then when they discover they need to deal with the High Evolutionary, who he is, whatnot, right? And that whole sequence and whatnot, everything.
All right, so I mentioned briefly earlier that this was one of my favorite sequences of the film. I absolutely thought it was hilarious, and like I said, they get there, they get Gamora to help them get in. That's who, of course, Nebula's contact is, because she is this Gamora, the one from 2014 that popped through in Endgame, is now a part of the Ravagers, and so. They basically make their way. They get through the force fields. We kind of have that interesting moment there where they're dealing with the force fields and stuff like that. Then they get into the suits, and we have kind of that crazy kind of like jumping around sequence where they're on the different colored suits and stuff like that. Mantis keeps falling on her head, which I think is absolutely hilarious. I don't know if it has to do with a bug thing, because she's supposed to be Mantis. That's the only thing I can think of why she keeps falling on her head like a bug. So I think that was kind of funny if that's the reason they decided to go that way. I think that's hilarious. But basically they make their way, and they basically create a hole in the material that is that whatever that place is called. I forget what it's called. But they start shoving themselves through, and then of course it gets to Drax, because he's so wide it takes them a little while to get him through the hole. And while they're doing that, of course, they're making sure, seeing if they're noticing that there's a breach in the hole and stuff like that, and because they put like a force field thing up. And so finally they get Drax through, and they get everyone through, and they put the force field thing back up. They get in there, they take off their suits, and trying to get into gear to look like they are mechanics. And so then, that's when they decide to throw their spacesuits into that storage-looking container that Mantis thinks it is, and of course, and we end up seeing those flying by later on. And then basically it goes through kind of like crazy funny scenarios. Like I said, we had the part where Mantis makes that one guard guy like be in love with Drax, and Drax is dealing with that, and that's absolutely hilarious. And then we go in and we see kind of the crazy station that is this organic matter that's living. And we see all these like giant TVs and all this kind of stuff. And going through it, of course, we get all these sequences. We had the red colored character who is the rat catcher from Suicide Squad, like Kyle mentioned. And basically they ask her for assistance. They basically take her at gunpoint. While this is happening, that's when we see briefly, James Gunn's wife there. We have great, funny things with Nathan Fillion, especially with Nathan Fillion. This whole sequence is absolutely hilarious. He keeps like mentioning how the one guy that's a part of his crew sucks, and how he's like, I have one of those. Like it's like how annoying it is that that's what they say about Drax and stuff like that, which is hilarious. And as they go through that, basically they just kind of have that crazy mishap, and they're trying to do everything they can. Then they have that kind of crazy blowout, and that's where Drax gets shot, Mantis gets shot, and basically they're able to finally get what they need, that little orb thing that has Rocket's information on it. And they, get themselves the hell out of there and realize that they have to go find the actual high evolutionary. And that they have to find him, but because they have to find him because one of his robot assistant characters is the one that has the information stored in his memory, and that's why they have to go after him. So, like I said, that whole sequence I really enjoyed. I thought the whole sequence was really fun. I thought the action was done well. I thought the comedy was perfect there. The color scheme was fun. The look of the characters was hilarious looking. That whole sequence just cracked me up, and I love just all the different characters, what they all brought to that sequence. And just that was really kind of a highlight for me in this film. And I remember getting to that point, and I was like, I started getting excited for the film, actually, finally. And I was like, this whole sequence really... and I enjoyed it and thought it was really fun. And even at this point, I think that's when we finally got a little bit of the Guardians' actual music during that sequence, because throughout the whole entire film, I felt like there really was no composer music. It was just all songs being played, and really no Guardians of the Galaxy music like we had in previous two films, which I enjoyed that composer music. I think it's really well done, and I think that's what makes Guardians enjoyable. And so when they finally had kind of that brief moment there, I was really, really enjoyable there. And to kind of talk about Adam Warlock a little bit, since you guys were talking about them a little bit, I absolutely think that William Poulter did a great job. I absolutely loved what they did with the character. I loved that they made him a dummy, made him different than what's in the comics, because I think that gave it a little bit more comedy to the film versus how dark this film is, like we've mentioned. And we all know it's dark because of, it's Rocket's past, it's his conclusion, it's all this kind of stuff. And so I think making him funny actually kind of added to the comedy for the film, which we saw quite a bit in the previous two films. So I enjoyed that part, even though, why did the High Evolutionary pull him out early? I have no idea. I think it was stupid, because it would have been fun to see him as, like, the perfect god that he's supposed to be, like in the comics. That would have been fun. But I think that they did that, too, on purpose, because William Poulter is a comedian. His roles have always been comedy. And so I think they did that to bring his acting out, to give the character more depth and more fun. And I think that's really what they did with that character. Because as we see him briefly, we see him at the very beginning of the film. We kind of see him at this point because we see him with Aisha, who is played by Elizabeth Debicki.
Yep.
And, her character, I was really surprised to see her again. I knew she was going to be in it, but I was surprised at how big of a scale it was again. And so I think that her kind of like, in between that sequence there, we go to her and Aisha and her, the evolutionary talking and all this kind of stuff. And, kind of like just the High Evolutionary kind of yelling everything. And it was just kind of like, why is he yelling everything? Like, I just didn't find that very interesting. And that doesn't make a good villain. A good villain is very stoic, very evil, behind the lines, and you see it evolve and you see it grow, and I don't feel that with the High Evolutionary in this. Whereas, kind of like how they did with in the first film with the awesome why am I having a hard time? Ronan, the Destroyer, he
Yeah.
was a fantastic villain. And that I wish that had been more like what the High Evolutionary had been. And from the comics, like I looked up the High Evolutionary comics, I read some of his comics, nothing like the character whatsoever. The whole concept was just kind of like, I think, a James Gunn idea, really, with how they developed him. And I just didn't think that it was really well done well. And so I think that his intermixings and throughout that in that section of the film just wasn't as great as I thought it could have been. I thought it just could have been a little better and would have made the movie more enjoyable. And so that whole sequence, like I said, I think is one of my favorite sequences. The only downside was, like I said, with those few kind of intermittent scenes that they had with the High Evolutionary. See, I'm saying it now too, Andre. Revolutionary.
Andre, that's what we're doing, bro.
And
HR.
Yep. And so I think that whole sequence though at that living planet or living organism that they infiltrate was just fantastic and made the film enjoyable and actually raised my score from what I was thinking up to that point for the film. So I was happy with that they gave us something there.
I know, and Jasmine, you really gave me something earlier and whatnot when you mentioned the word asshole and stick in the ass multiple times in like one quick thing there and whatnot, everything. All it reminded me of was being down by She-Hulk, man, again. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I had to talk about it. Now I'm gonna put a quarter in the fucking She-Hulk swear drawer again. Cyber, I'm doing it, I promise. But no, Andres, and then to you, Jasmine. Andres, whatever your thoughts are on this part of the film, but also on top of that, I guess you just like again, as Cyber touched on, and I mentioned also the interpersonal relationships and dynamics between the Guardians in this part of the film in general. Just their banter. I thought added a lot to this part of the movie and the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, I think this movie made me appreciate the characters more, like Mantis and Drax relationship, like these two were pairs since Volume 2, right? Now looking back on Volume 2, they're like been the best duo in the whole MCU. Like think about it, the best thing about the Christmas special was them, Mantis and Drax. Were great in the Christmas special, and it was great to see those two again together in this thing. I mean, I agree with Cyber. When Mantis, I say, mind controlled the guard to love Drax was hilarious because the way she reacted, like she starts to giggle, is so funny, and it was really great. Yeah, and this sequence, what I love about this sequence, this was full on James Gunn's friends and family in this one scene. Like Nathan Fillion, the actress from Ratcatcher 2 from the Suicide Squad, Jennifer Holland was here. Like half of his friends pop up in this sequence. I thought that was really great. This was pure Guardians. Like it reminded me of the Guardians prison escape scene, or Yondu's like arrow killing in the Ravager ship. Like that. This is why this was great because and the music again came back to that's what I love about the Guardians. So it was really great, and you saw like each the Guardians' use of their ability so well. Like Mantis using her mind control on the guards was really funny. You had the one that was doing the cha 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 dance, and then the one with the rage. Like that was hilarious. And yeah, seeing Drax being Drax and throwing people away was really funny. But also you got like cool character development between Star-Lord and Gamora. Seeing how like we've been hearing how Star-Lord is just constantly trying to trigger or like trying to convince this version of Gamora to remember what they did as a couple, and like you see the reaction of Gamora when he starting that conversation again. It's like she's getting tired of it. That's why she starts to aggressively throw him in the ship, in the new Guardian ship. But yeah, this scene was really great. Great action scene. Like this is the best. I mean, when we get to the the HR ship, like the Guardians hallway fight scene, it like that over trumps this Armed Corps sequence for me. But I think it just shows how Gunn is improving as a filmmaker, and so that's really good. One thing I want to bring up, we haven't brought up Groot. Out of all the Guardians, Groot is the least use of those characters. Like every Guardians character has a satisfying conclusion, and Groot is like he's like kind of disappointment in this film. Like you don't get his cool his relationship with Rocket at all. Like the fact that those two have been best buds since the first film, right? Like we don't get nothing from those two. And yeah, but like I felt like Groot was just kind of there for a cool action sequence. Like don't mind, I actually like him becoming a parachute for Star Lord when he had to jump out from outside to get that the HR assistant with with Data. Like that was a cool like action sequence, but I was kind of disappointed of what Gunn sort of did to Groot. So yeah, Groot was. It was kind of sad that Groot wasn't in the sequence because we kind of could see Groot in action. But yeah, that was really sad. But overall, this was a fun and great sequence, a highlight of the film. This is where I got really engaged with the film.
Okay, most definitely. Most definitely. Jasmine, my friend.
Hi.
Hey, what do you got to say, my dear?
Personally, I feel like I kind of agree with Cyber when it comes to how they used Will Poulter as, Warlock, because it fits. I mean, he is a comedic actor. Anything I've seen him in, he's been the punching bag or the comedic joke or making people laugh. And I don't stumble for it. I definitely think he could have played a serious character if he was given the chance. So I'm not stumping his artistry. I'm just saying I think James Gunn was smart to go that route because this movie was very serious in tone. And for those who are, that kind of shit on the Snyderverse because they say it's a little too dark, it was giving very much that for me. Like it was giving me very much DCU darkness. And it's not bad. It just, it was what it was. And I enjoyed seeing Will Poulter, and I think he wasn't just comedic relief because his interactions with his mother when he saw that she was going to die in that explosion of the planet and the way he raced towards her, he was giving some real seriousness in that moment, which is nice. Each time you see him, he's giving you a little bit of something different with his emotions, which I enjoy. Um, Rocket was doing really good so far throughout the entire film. I didn't really have anything bad to say about him. His backstory was sad, in particularly. I see a lot. I saw in the comments that someone thought Gamora was boring. I don't think she was boring. I think she was doing what she needed to do, and particularly as an asshole. I did like seeing her reconnect with her clan, and I did like seeing Nowhere as the ship that it was. That was really interesting. To be completely honest, the whole third act was my favorite part of the film. To be completely honest.
Well, I'm not there yet.
I know, but to be completely honest, in the overall scheme of things, that was my favorite part.
I got you.
The first two were just kind of there.
Essentially, you're gonna have more to say probably than this on the next question.
Well, yeah, but that's pretty much all I have to say for this part.
I got you. Okay. Kyle, am I rounding? I'm rounding things out with you again, aren't I?
Yeah, not a problem. I think that this part of the Guardians film was kind of to give you the traditional feel of the Guardians. Give them their moment of being kind of a little bit of the comedy act they are, but how they nothing quite goes quite as planned for the Guardians. And I love that fact that you see Quill trying to formulate a plan, and then you've got Gamora just going in and basically plowing through everything. I love all the interactions while they're in that scientific station and the things they're doing there. But I think for the most part too, when you add in the aspects of the high evolutionary, these what they try to do there, these are just small little setup things for what they're building towards too with the high evolutionary later in the film. And so they're not the biggest things. The fact too that they established this whole thing where he's using Warlock to go hunt down Rocket is interesting, because basically then they reveal that he is the creator of the Sovereign themselves, and kind of in a way their god and deity in an aspect. And you also see I think it's interesting how they portrayed the high evolutionary with, like, he's got the business side, but he's got the scientific side, and he uses kind of the business side for his scientific experiments, which is kind of an interesting play on the high evolutionary. I don't know if it's 100% what I would do, but I think it was an interesting idea. But I think the big thing that you pull out from the sequence is this is the classic Guardians of the Galaxy sequence. This is them getting in their own way, doing things their own way, as backwards as it may be sometimes, or for the Guardians, nothing goes right. You guys have all talked a little bit about Groot. I think Groot really shines a little bit in the second half of the film. I love the scene where they go to the high evolutionary ship and what he is in that scene. And I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I really think what you see with Groot is the maturity factor from Groot from the second film and what we saw in Avengers and things like that. Groot has grown, and he's turning into an interesting character, because he's not the Groot from the first film. This is a new Groot, but he has that aspect of him, but he has this personality of spending all the time with the Guardians as well. So I think that makes for a very interesting version of this Groot that we have. But overall, I think this part of the film is probably the most fun part of the film, considering the heavy subjects that we get into in this film as well. You really needed this to kind of act as a counterbalance. So I think this was Gunn having fun being James Gunn to the upteenth degree here with these scenes, and then kind of as we move forward, we get into a little bit more of the deeper storyline and more of the Marvel style aspects of this film.
Okay, most definitely. And I think that as I just explained in the private chat, the essentially what I guess you could probably say would be over 30% of the film, probably over a third. But essentially, what would be I guess you could call the final, sort of like full segment of the film, where they flush out and actually, then go to Counter Earth and, essentially do what they have to do to save Rocket, right? Essentially, we get, of course, the hilarious scene that we saw in the trailer with Drax throwing the fucking basketball or whatever at the little girl and shit, whatnot, everything and whatnot, with those weird ass, like, I guess, were those supposed to be new men or whatever, whatnot, in that city? That shit was hilarious. That fucking the one dude making the noises and shit and whatnot, or whatever. It's the response was hilarious. Sorry for my impression on that one, guys. I know it was not exactly very good, but no. And of course, Kraglin does have does have some role in the film. You just don't really see him, and he has no impact till the end. Right, other than that, he really just kind of, you don't see much of him. But I like Kraglin, and we'll mention him at the end, of course. But basically, at that point, of course, Adam Warlock has kind of started to. Oh, and of course, they had to throw in the whole like the cousin of the fucking butt-faced animal from Shang-Chi that had to be in the film to be Adam Warlock's like little animal buddy or whatever and whatnot. That was interesting. I'm not sure if it was funny or cringy or what, but whatever. The fucking pet thing, yeah. I mean, come on.
I thought it was kind of funny. Like,
Cyber, did you find the pet funny?
I mean,
the what funny?
The pet funny, the fucking stupid animal thing that Adam Warlock for be friends or whatever.
Oh yes, I thought that was stupidly funny.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it was just like a harmless joke. I thought it was funny.
No, I feel bad.
Yeah, so it was. I kind of like it. It was funny because it just brought Will Potter's humor to like come to life, and I thought what he did was really good because sometimes I think if the actor, like if it was any actor, it could have been bad and it could have been just really. But I think Will, the actor that plays Adam Warlock, did a great job to like think this is a pet. Like it's just so absurd. I love those absurd comedies. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I know, but again, I understand from the comic. Like Kyle said, the people that are even like somewhat lightly like just care really deeply about the comic accuracy are just fucking like
Yeah.
not happy with that shit at all.
Yeah,
The whole thing, the whole performance. But
It's
Jasmine,
the MCU at this point. They shouldn't be surprised that it's not comic book accurate. I have not seen a damn comic book accurate thing yet when it comes to certain characters. They missed the ball with a lot of them, and I can list off a bunch of them. So I think people haven't quite grasped the MCU yet when it comes to comic book accuracy. She-Hulk leaping out of a panel was comic book accurate, but people still complained.
No. It's what it is, Jasmine. I think is that people don't grasp that you can't translate the comic books over into a cinematic landscape and whatnot. It does not work.
I don't think it's that. I think it's we have Kevin doing it his way. He has a idea of how he sees.
No, Jasmine, it
cinematic
doesn't
universe.
translate. Kyle, do the comics translate into a cinematic
Yeah, they
dynamic?
do. They were already a cinematic thing. It's kind of like
What? When? The MCU?
the comics are a cinematic universe in itself.
Yeah.
They're their own universe, and they have their stories already pre-written out for you. It is not that hard to adapt these comics.
It is. It does not just translate or flow into a cinematic world. It doesn't work that way.
Adam Warlock Easter egged at the end of one film. He could have easily popped up in any other of those franchises before we got to Endgame. It would have been easy if they. But
wait,
like,
no. We're not going back and trying to go over Infinity War.
I'm not going back. I'm just stating that when it comes to certain things, their fans have an idea in their head what they want, and if it doesn't hit that mark, they get disappointed and then say the movie sucks.
That's fair.
I think the issue being is that I think there's aspects to the comics that can translate to the big screen, but you have to keep in mind you're not when you're doing a movie, you're not just aiming it towards the comic fans. You're trying to pull in a general audience too, so you can make the most of it. So I think there always has to be some adaptation in the aspect of the characters and things to make it more appealable to a general audience, not just a certain select audience. Plus, there's just things you can do in a comic book that you just can't do on a big in a live action film. And I mean, granted, the technical effects have improved greatly over the years, but there's still just certain aspects that you can't pull off in a live action film with comic book characters. And I think the other aspect of it being too is that I think Guardians is probably the one that has been kind of taking the most liberties with as far as what they've done with some of the characters. But I think the idea here with Kevin Feige and the MCU is they want to have some comic accuracy, but it's about capturing the spirit of those characters in the comics, not so much quite as the true translation. And I think for the most part, I think they've succeeded in doing that. There's always a few exceptions to that rule, but I would say they're running at about a 75% clip of at least really catching the spirit of those characters and putting them on the big screen.
I say about a 70. I wouldn't say 75 because we have Taskmaster, we have Sylvie being turned into a Loki variant. We got there's moments where they could be a 75, but they change it to the point where it can be a little divisive. No. And I think the fandom is kind of divisive at this point because of said slight changes. Some things I agree with you on. I definitely agree that things don't translate well from the comics. That is definitely very true. But I do think that certain aspects to a certain character shouldn't be changed just to fit the narrative of what somebody wrote. That is my opinion.
That's
That's
true.
fine.
The other
But-
thing we also
Go
have
ahead.
to remember quickly, I think what to like maybe change the subject, like what I think what has been helpful for the Guardians films, particularly this film, is the director's vision. Because you brought up Taskmaster and Sylvie, Taskmaster particularly, like how why that didn't work is because it felt like a community, like a film like commute of what we want to have this film to be. Where here, this movie, like you feel like this is Gunn's, like like take on these characters and what he views and things like that, like kind of like a comic book writer, like every comic writer has their different opinions and takes on these comic book characters we all love. Like, I mean, a good example of this is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring this in the Guardians of the Galaxy film, but like Batman is a good example of this. You got Dennis O'Neil, the late great Dennis O'Neil, while you have writer like Frank Robinson, who created Frank Robinson that created Man Bat. He had a different take on Batman, or Steve Englehart, who had a completely different take on Batman during the mid '70s to the late '80s, like the early '80s. So I wherever you think about Alan Warlock, like no worry about Alan Warlock. This is his introduction. Soon we're gonna get more of him, and soon we're gonna get a more comic accurate Alan Warlock. Sort of like what we got with the Guardians characters. Like Gamora felt like a comic book accurate Gamora for this film after what I don't know how many films she has popped up in the MCU. So I think I just wish Adam Warlock had more time, but luckily we have a great actor that plays Adam Warlock.
Well, let me finish here. So basically, long story short, this isn't complicated when it's going down. We all know how things play out, and I'll let you guys fill in the gaps. But basically, I think it's important to point out before I even mention what happens in terms of the Guardians that are like not, in Rocket's shape and whatnot, everything, as they're on their mission to try to, save his life and whatnot. And then it kind of flips into almost like, them sort of like end up then and having to like, wanting to have to take down the High Evolutionary and, and essentially stop what he's doing, essentially, caging and experimenting on all these different like races and animals and, these creations that he has and shit. And so basically, as they're like heading to counter Earth and whatnot and everything, we get the scene where we see the High Evolutionary like lose it. Like, well, he loses the whole fucking movie. Like Cyber said, he's constantly fucking like losing it. But like, I didn't like that either. That was just like boring to me. That he was that repetitively fucking negative and like an asshole constantly and whatnot, and like so freaking like above everybody. I mean, I get it. He is like that in the comics to some extent too, though. He's like that, but they do it differently. They put him out. The way that they display it and present it is not like that. He's not a complete jerk off, a fucking like he is. Like he's not completely a complete dick like that. He's just not like that. He's not like that. But either way, he's like unhinged at one point because Rocket essentially, I don't know if he's essentially more intelligent than he is, but he's able to essentially, I guess I'm trying to think of how to explain it. He's able to essentially solve an issue that the High Evolutionary is having in terms of I guess if I remember correctly, the anthropomorphization process with Rocket's advice explain is able to like solve it and figure out how to make it work. And at that point, the High Evolutionary I think says something along the lines of like, I created you, you're this and that. How could you know how to do this? Right. And basically right there says, you're not going to what were they calling the sky place or whatever, whatnot, the
Counter Earth.
Counter Earth.
Yeah, but they had a different word for it. The animal, his friends, everything, and Rocket and all that, whatnot. They called it the new place or something, or You know what I mean?
Sky
Where the sky was or whatever. Yeah. Either way, the new place, the new world, or whatever they were going to, he tells Rocky, "You're not going." He like laughs at him and shit. That shit was fucking terrible. I didn't like that at all. I think I cried somewhere around that point. That was when I cried for the film, which was just kind of one of those things that it told up over throughout the whole film, and then with the Guardians themselves thinking about them being out of the MCU, and then the animal shit and whatnot, everything, it did fuck me up. But I'm not dying inside over it and whatnot and shit. Come on now. There was no damn animal abuse in the movie. But no, he basically says to him, like, nah, man, you ain't going nowhere. You're like a joke. You're not one of my like new men or whatever, whatnot. You're just like a failed experiment. And I want that brain though. And so that leads into something, later on where we do actually see Rocket attempt to try to break everyone out. And it was really tender as well, too, when he said, I'm going to fly ships at some point, whatnot, everything. Well, it's very sad, later on when we do see it play out and we find out how the evolutionary ended up getting his face ripped up and whatnot, everything, and having to wear the mask. Because essentially when, the Rocket tries to do the escape mission with his friends, Lila gets killed during the escape, and he just like goes off on him. But I digress. From there, they go to Counter Earth. There's some really funny shit that goes down. Some really good humor from Nebula, I thought. There's the F-bomb scene with the car. It was fucking great, dude. Loved it.
Best one.
I thought Nebula killed it in this movie. I thought she did. I thought she was great.
Oh, she's great. She's great. I love her. Yeah.
No, but the whole friggin' thing with Drax on the couch when he's trying to get through to this like whatever new med person or whatever, whatnot, that woman, everything and whatnot. The whole thing, the deal of it. There's so many little jokes about that whole thing that were hilarious. And again, the banter. The whole thing with Mantis and like your death and like your whatever is the same thing. And it's it's crazy to think that we started off with Nebula the way she is. That wasn't the first one, and how she is now. It's amazing. But they infiltrate the high evolutionaries, sort of like they infiltrate. They're invited into, his actual, I guess base on Counter Earth, with his guards and everything, which were really neat and all that. And at that point, they essentially go in and, at that point, they're invited in. They go in and they attempt to access the code that they need to get and everything and whatnot to turn off the kill switch. Rocket flatlines. He has like a near-death experience where he does, he plays. That's when he kind of like, remembers the whole scene of him tearing up the dude's face, high evolutionary. We get like the children involved and whatnot, everything and all that they have to end up having to save when Nebula, Mantis, and Drax team up kind of at one point. After we get that, I believe that's after we get that excellent sort of hallway fight scene. It might have been later.
Later.
Yeah, we get the hallway fight scene.
This is the Groot with the multiple gun.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, but that was great. That was awesome. But so essentially, at that point, they come across these imprisoned humanoid children. There's hundreds of them at the ship, along with a bunch of different kind of like experimented, I guess, different creations, or either like things that how she wants to experiment different races. It's very sad, and some of it's funny. Quill's group sets out to rescue the three, and they're placed in this chamber with these huge walrus-like alien creatures that Mantis figures out. They're just scared, and that was very Mantis. It was very cute. It was like very for me. I found it touching. And then they ride their way out on them, whatever the hell you want to call those things. I guess they're abulisks or whatever. Okay. But Mantis befriends them. And like I said, they reunite with Quill, the rest of the group. And that's when we get like the really good scene that I thought was really dope when we see from the trailer where Rocket says, "I'm tired of running, Pete," and cocks his gun kind of a la First Guardians and everything. And at that point, we do get that hallway scene. And I'm going to ask everybody about that specifically because that was awesome. I thought for me, I'm not saying that's the best part that was the best segment of the film. That for me was the best action scene of the film. and maybe even the best action scene I've ever seen in the Guardians film. I thought it was excellent. Really well done. Like, oh, the frig.
Apparently, we lost mic service again, huh?
Yeah. Should
Wah-wah.
I could give him my microphone from the 70s.
I'm not sorry about that. I don't know why that keeps happening to me. There must be something wrong with the end of my cord or something like that. It's never detached from my mic like that on its own. I didn't even move it or anything or touch it. But either way, no. So long story short, as we all know, what ends up happening essentially is that we had that really great hallway scene and everything and whatnot as a full team again as the Guardians. I did mention the Alpha Group deal and whatnot. That was funny as well earlier in the film. But at that point, it's like an all-on, full-on like battle almost, and we get the scene where Quill jumps out the window and whatnot and goes to the ground. Essentially, as we kind of wrap up the whole scene with that high evolutionary, we do end up having Kraglin come back, and as Jasmine mentioned, fly into the high evolutionary ship. Essentially, she shoots it, and then they fly into it, don't they? With what like the counter Earth ship.
Yeah.
They have that cannon, and they basically like kind of fly into it. That's how they're able to rescue the children and the obelisks and everything and whatnot. Everything is they're able to do that through that. They sort of create like a tunnel, and basically at that point, we get like the really sad part where we get the scene that I'll let you guys talk about and then pretty much fill the details on, where they do kind of break up, right? And decide where they're going to go and whatnot. And I thought that was very emotional. Well done, very emotional. Again, I love the movie. I do, as a whole. But I thought it was well done. I liked the way it ended. I thought that, the scene was very powerful, and they all portrayed and played played it very well. All the actors and actresses, their characters did a really great job, expressing the emotions, whatnot, everything, right? And I love the things they said and the directions they went, their reasons, why to do independent, and you guys can tell me. I mean, I thought the characters all were fairly dealt with as far as given screen time. And that finally everyone got a chance to kind of play there at the end. And I liked how things shook out. And the High Evolutionary did not die. He did have his recorders at one point overthrow him and try to take over and whatnot, but he used his powers to kind of sat that out, essentially kill him. But at that point, we get the fabulous dancing scene and whatnot. I think Jasmine, you mentioned earlier with that was really cute with Rocket with the headphones, and Pete gives him his playlist, and we see everyone dance, and I love seeing Nebula dance. She looks so exuberant and whatnot. And then we get some really touching stuff, with we get the Quill going to Earth with the grandfather, very very emotional. Really cool. And we get the end credits, which, just basically, I didn't find all that impactful, but kind of just basically show, I guess, the new version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Whether we're going to get any more of it, I don't know. Would that have Warlock in it, whatnot, right? He does kind of turn over to the good side or whatever towards the end, and joins the group hug, like a cloud. But no, the big credit scenes didn't do anything for me really. We see the new team. They announced in print or in text that Star-Lord will be back. That's great. We don't know how, but it's great. And again, I'll ask all of you what you think about the future of the Guardians. But I like the way they ended it. Gamora goes back with the Ravengers. They do have a cute, like Cyber said, towards the end they give them one chance. Or Kyle said they do have some fleeting scenes with them where there does seem something good coming out of it. The way they played the whole dynamic though across the film was not well done, I thought. It didn't add anything really. So I'll start with you, Cyber. In terms of that whole final segment of the film, have at it. Whatever you want to put out there, put it out there. And then, especially, what did you think of the way that they hit the whole the sort of hallway fight scene? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? And then, again, the banter and how they ended up breaking up. That scene itself, did that do anything for you towards the end?
So the whole end sequence of this film was fun. The car sequence was absolutely hilarious when Quill says the F-bomb. That was absolutely freaking hilarious. Drax on the couch, him kept wanting to lie down, was absolutely freaking hilarious. And, getting to, basically ended up going to that ship where the High Evolutionary is, and the battle sequence and all that kind of stuff, and all that was decent. It wasn't horrible, wasn't the best, but it was interesting. Visually, it was kind of sucked, I thought. I didn't care too much for the angles that they chose to use for that and stuff like that. I don't think it was well done in that aspect. I personally prefer when things are more stationary, when they're doing scenes, especially action sequences, because I want to be able to see it in action. I want to see the action going down. I want to see it all playing out. But when they do the angles and stuff like that, it doesn't do anything for me. I find it annoying. So I didn't care too much for that. But overall, the action sequences were fun. When Groot pulls out the 7 guns, which was freaking awesome. I absolutely loved that. I thought that was super cool. I really enjoyed Groot in this one. I liked that he finally was back in kind of more of a kick-ass Groot kind of stage. Instead of being the teenage Groot and being the baby Groot, we got more back to how he kind of was in the first film. He wasn't super old, but he's that bigger Groot. He's more, younger, but he's back to full potential, which I really enjoyed. I like that they really showed him go to town and be using his talents and stuff like that. Especially when he loses all his body and is just a head. That was freaking cool too. Yeah. I absolutely love that. And but going to basically the sequence where Rocket and the High Evolutionary kind of battled it out a little bit there. It was kind of weak on poor Rocket's part. I thought that it kind of sucked that they didn't have him kick his ass a little bit more until the other Guardians got there. But at the same time, when they all joined together and showed that family camaraderie, that was really cool. I like that they all kicked his ass. They took him down. I thought that was really well done. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that the whole concept of the High Evolutionary wants to take all different types of life forms and make them like human or like human state, and I think that was absolutely hilarious. Because they were talking to the bat people. We saw rat people. We saw all these different types of things, and like I said, once again, this whole movie made me think of Biofreaks the game and Virus the movie. That's everything. Every time I saw the animal creatures, that's what I thought. It made me think of that exactly. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I felt that compared to other Marvel films, I feel this definitely was the most adultish film of the Marvel MCU, where they really delved into the more darker horror aspect of a film. So I thought definitely they got that with these, characters that they made that were part machine, part, organic material. But, the ending part, it didn't get to me sentimentally, really at all. I was kind of, by that point, I was kind of okay, not bad, okay, there's some good parts, there's some bad parts. The whole end sequence there where they're dancing and stuff, that was fun. That was kind of hilarious, seeing Nebula dance and Rocket dance and everyone dance. But it didn't have, super, sentimental value to me. It was just another scene, a part of the movie. And then, of course, Rocket kind of getting the player passed on to him. That was kind of fun. It was kind of already happening, I feel, at the beginning of the film. They didn't really, it was kind of, they were already passing it, and they passed it. But that whole sequence where they're, saving all the kids, and Drax, is able to help by being able to know the language of the children to help them get off the thing. That was pretty funny. I thought that he's finally oh, you are useful after all, kind of thing. That was kind of fun and stupid at the same time, but I thought it was okay. It wasn't horrible. But I thought Drax was absolutely fantastic in this. I loved his last outing as Drax, Dave Bautista. I thought he did a really fantastic job. I loved the evolution of Drax throughout this whole series. Gamora, yes, hands down, I think Gamora was really interesting and fun in this film versus what she was in the previous two. I think the movie I liked her the most in was Endgame or Infinity War. That was my favorite version of Gamora. I really enjoyed that. She finally let loose. She finally was showing emotion and stuff like that. So it was seeing her back to kind of that like hard ass kind of stick up her ass type of deal was fun because we hadn't seen that in a while. But overall, the end sequence, the end part of this film was, like I said, okay. Generally okay, and overall, I thought there was some good action sequences and moments to it and all that kind of good stuff. I absolutely hated when Star-Lord is basically stuck out in space and Adam Warlock saves him. Why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, after 3 films, they decided to make his face morph when he is out in space. Now, they've had plenty of characters end up in space throughout the several films, and none of their faces expanded like that, like a blob. They just froze. So I don't get why they decided to do that with this version. I thought that was kind of stupid. But at the same time, maybe they did it because he's no longer part God or Celestial or whatever or something. But anyways, I just thought that looked stupid, and I don't get why they decided to do that. But I loved Adam Warlock in this. I liked what Will Poulter did with the character, like I said before. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him, see what he does with it. The end credit sequence, basically where they show like it's supposed to be the new Guardians. I'm not super thrilled if that's the new Guardians they're going to be going with. It's not the greatest bunch. Because, I'm sorry, honestly, Cosmo didn't do anything for me. I thought the character was, it's a fun little side character to have out but being a main part of the cast, I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think he's really that great of a character. Plus, also, they made him into a woman, a female character this time around, and I'm like, that's fine, but at the same time, why did they make him Russian? I guess because he's a cosmonaut, I guess? I don't know. Anyways, I just think it could have been a better iteration of that character. And we could have added. I don't feel like they really needed him that much in the film to begin with. And if he's a part of the new Guardians, I just don't think that's going to be very fun. I think the best post-credit scene was definitely the one where Quill is with his grandfather, and he's eating cereal, and it's just super funny. And I just liked how that ended. And then, of course, it's saying the blank Star Wars is going to return. And I was kind of surprised by that. I did not see that coming. So I was thankful for that. I was thankful they didn't kill Rocket. I was glad they didn't kill any of the Guardians at the end of this film. I will say I'm glad they decided not to do those things. I was really surprised because halfway through the film, with how Rocket was doing, I was thinking they were going to kill him, and I was glad they didn't. So I'm happy that all the characters survived. I'm glad they got their ending, and I actually ended up looking up the new Star-Lord type of whatever he's called again, the legendary Starlight, I believe it's called. I looked up the comics and actually read the first comic, and I'm excited if they decide to do that route. It'll be interesting to see how well they follow that.
Most definitely. Andres.
Sure. Okay. First off, Cosmo is a very he's part of the Guardians of the Galaxy team, and yes, in the comics, the dog is actually from the Soviet Union, so that is part of the comics. And the change they did with this movie is the gender. The gender has always been male from comics for Cosmo. Anyway, I need to get that out of the way. Before any Guardians fan will attack Cyber. No. Anyway, for Cyber. Yeah. So Counter Earth race sequence. I love the F-bomb. I mean, just Chris Pratt delivering it was so awesome. Just Nebula, like, just not knowing how to open the door was funny. Yeah, and separating your Guardians yet again, just like the corpse was really good decision. So we got more Mantis and Drax scenes, which was great. Pairing Groot and Star-Lord together was really nice. Like that, like when we saw the setup of of Star-Lord telling Groot to hide the guns in his body, and then see it in full action was really great. One of my favorites, like one of my favorite Groot scenes. That was really great. And this was a great scene for the villain. You know, I like how Quill faced the HR in this scene, and I think it was a good conversation about how he wants to create a perfect society and be similar to Counter Earth, but in a more like Tron level of like the perfect society and all that, which is good. Anyway, so then after that, you know, the of course the main villain explodes the counter Earth, and this is where the big theme comes into play. Of every living creature is important. It's not only the humans, the aliens, the aminos. That's why when we see the whole ending of everyone, like every creature and every freaking trillion are coming into the nowhere because of that's like because how the main villain has treated creatures and like the fact that he blew up a whole planet of these living creatures because they were imperfect is so stupid and just very just like it's frustrating. So I really like that Gunn really hone in and say every person and creature in the living planet is important, which is good. I the one thing I want to bring up was the rocket name. Like we got explanation of like why he named himself Rocket, and finally we got Rocket to actually embrace his raccoon because throughout the MCU, you know, Rocket has always resist the name raccoon because he's a raccoon, and you know I cannot believe when we got to him facing HR and when he discovered you know the cage of the raccoons and of course he wants to save them, you know, his family, the raccoons, his species, and you know he sees you know where they come from, and then he sees the raccoon where he has been hearing so many times from Star Lord, and it was so first up naming his name a rocket because he wants to fly out skies with his friends. That's really touching. That got me a little teary-eyed about his name being Rocket, but him finally calling himself Rocket Raccoon was so awesome. Just him saying Rocket Raccoon, it was like just amazing. I really enjoyed that, and yeah, I agree with Saber. You know, this is the most like mature, like this is the most darkest and mature MCU film we've gotten so far, which is great. But also, it's because this is the most gun film we had so far in any of his trilogy. You know, I think that you know, Gunn really played loose in this film. Like he was able to do his horror background that we know. So he played up some of his horror.
They added a very adult element, almost
Yeah,
Suicide Squad esque.
yeah, exactly. So that was really good. But yeah, you know, seeing the fight sequence, the hallway fight sequence is like it's up there with the Daredevil hallway scenes, and I think that this was amazing. Number three, I'll put it at number three. And no worry, Daredevil is still top. Still, can nothing beats Daredevil.
Daredevil was one person versus fucking like 1887 different dudes.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's cool. You see multiple bad guys versus a team, and this was like the like 180 shot of like the first Avengers scene where we saw like the Guardians, like you know the Avengers for the first time. It's kind of like that. We see the Guardians here, but jumping into action was really great. But yeah, it was a really great action scene because it had the best song from the Beastie Boys. That was a great pick to make that scene great.
Agreed.
So that was really good. But yeah, so and then so and then after that, you know, we don't know if I still cannot believe we don't get confirmation about HR alive or dead. I don't know. I don't care anymore. I don't care. Whatever. He survived. Probably see him in the future. Whatever. If we don't see his body, he's still alive. If you watch horror movies, we need to see the body. Then it is alive. If I don't see the body, it's not dead. So watch horror movies, folks. Okay, so you know the killer is still out there. um, But yeah, so so it was speaking of the ending, seeing the Guardians separate ways was very touching. I don't know, you guys got like crying or teary, but I really got teary when Drax had to say goodbye to Mantis. That really got to me because Drax like really care about Mantis as a person, and so that was one of my teary moments was that. Yeah, and then yeah, I thought the song choice for this for the ending, the Dog Old Days song was really great to wrap up the film. I think it was a good pick, because one thing we have to discuss is we haven't discussed is the cast, where we're bringing up this is their final time in the film, in the MCU, and so I thought that not killing all the characters for the Guardians of the Galaxy makes sense. Like it makes sense not to kill them off because it's kind of like very like I say anticlimactic, say at least, or like it could have been not satisfying to see one of your favorite characters to die in this final film of this trilogy. So I'm happy that Gunn didn't go to that route. So just like Rocket, like I was happy that Rocket didn't die. So that was good. The post credit scenes. Um, I don't mind the new team. I mean, it's kind of like the comic accurate, 2008 Guardians of the Galaxy team now, which is good. We'll see. If they ever make a fourth move, like I don't think this is the team we're going to see later. It's going to expand, like just like the Avengers in Infinity War Endgame. So I don't think this is going to be our main Guardians of the Galaxy team. But yeah, as I agree with Cyber. With the Star Lord post credit scene. I was surprised that they say that he's gonna come back. I guess maybe we'll make a movie with Star Lord or a Disney Plus show. Uh, Makes sense. I mean, because Pratt never said that this was gonna be his final time to do the role. I mean, compared to Zoe Saldana and Dave Bautista, where they're very vocal, this is their last time. So, okay, I'm fine seeing more Chris Pratt in the MCU because I like him. So, I like Star Lord, and there's more to do with Star Lord, so that's fine. But yeah, overall, like the middle, and the third acts are my favorite of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So it's really high. So I'm very happy that they ended in a very high note for me, which is good.
Okay, most definitely. Jasmine, my friend, what would you like to wrap up with?
All right. Well, overall, I agree with Andrews. I believe with you on majority of what you were saying, as well as um, kind of cyber when it came to Cosmo. I think that's how you say the dog's name.
Yes, it is.
She in particularly, I feel a little. I really hate trailers because they do have a tendency to mislead people of what the movie entails. Because I kept seeing Cosmo's puppies in the trailer running down the steps, and they never did that in the film. So, like at the end, I was waiting for them to show up to help Cosmo hold the bridge or help the kids get across or anything, but they never showed up. So that was one thing that really irritated me. And I think Cosmo is the Russian dog that they shipped off into space. I think that's the whole route they were going with the change of the dog's accent. I think that's what the route they were going with that for Cyber, who was saying didn't know why they made them the dog Russian.
Well,
And
she was a Russian. The Ruskies flew up during the USSR. They flew up into space.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
that's why
this,
I wanted to get that
yeah,
out there because Cyber asked that, and I was like, they did explain that at one point.
is this
I
the same dog from the first film? Because remember,
yeah,
Cosmo
the
came.
same dog from the beginning. They like did a little
Yeah,
flashback of space outage, but I did. I do feel like I, I do feel like the film itself did a really good job at ending each of their stories and sending them off in a good way for a final film. I think Gunn did a really good job at that. Gamora finally has the home that she needs. It's not with her sister, but she found a family, and like seeing how happy she was and how much of a bitch she's been the entire movie. Just seeing her happy at the end made me happy. I don't know why they made Star-Lord's face bloated. I was trying to come up with random things to figure out why they did that. I was like, the dad died. Maybe he's not a celestial anymore. I was like, as it was happening. Um, I think out of the whole third act, between the fight scene where they felt like a real team, throughout all the Guardians films, this is the one time they were synchronized and working together. Even when you were watching them in Guardians 1 and Guardians 2, they were fighting against each other. Drax was never listening. Drax was going headfirst into battle, getting eaten by monsters, getting punched by Thanos. Star-Lord was not listening to Gamora when she said, "Kill me." Like, for once, they were actually a synchronized team, and they took out that whole room, and it was giving me very much Hit Girl from Kick-Ass. How, like, she just went in there and had a plan and took all those people out. It was giving me very much of that, or the scene from The Watchmen, where they were in the jail.
Okay.
That fight scene scenario, that's what it was. Very well
The Night Owl and Silk Spectre hallway scene.
yeah,
Watch
like, it
out.
was really, really good. They did a really good job at it, and
I agree.
it showed how much they've grown, even though Gamora isn't even the same person she was, since this is a whole different one. It was really good. I love seeing how trying to remember Gamora's sister's name right now. I forgot it.
Nebula.
Nebula.
Nebula. Nebula's relationship with Rocket growing over the span of the movies is so sweet, because it really drives home her getting that arm for him in the special,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it really connects that to show that he took that arm and made that arm into the new one that she has now. I didn't put that together until she said something. And I was like, holy hell. That was so sweet.
Just to interrupt, like, my host brought that up because her and Rocket were the remaining Guardians to survive in the blip in the Avengers. And so that's why. So, like, they became really close because they were like the last, like, survivors of the Guardians team, and so that's why Rocket say Nebula first. Like, where's Nebula? Because those two became good friends.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. And it's definitely a rewatchable movie. I just loved watching Rocket go back for the animals. That there was only two parts where I actually almost cried. And it was when he went back for the animals and got the little raccoons, or they look like ferrets, but he went and back and got them. I know they're trying to say it's raccoons, but those are ferrets. And he went back to go get them, and that was so sweet. And then them getting them on there. But the other part that made me tear up was when he finally saw his dad again.
Yeah.
I spent the entire movie not feeling a damn thing about anything in that movie.
I think it was Grandpa.
No, that's his dad.
That was his grandfather.
That was his grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because the dad's the alien. Never mind. But yeah, it's just nice seeing, like, that connection, that closure. That made me really happy. And that almost teared me up. I was like, oh, don't you dare. I haven't cried this whole movie. He's like, I can't say this movie didn't make me tear up. if I tear up right now, but I couldn't help it because it was such a nice moment in such a serious film. And it's nice to know that Star-Lord apparently is going to be coming back again.
Yes, they said it.
Yeah, they said it at the end of the film. I hope Gamora shows up again. And I hope Nebula shows up again. Because honestly, I love her. Her dry humor is what makes me happy. It kind of reminds me of the Mario movie with the star that's like a depressing little, you know, jail cell buddy who's just waiting for death to come and get them. That's how Nebula comes off, a very dry sense of humor. And I kind of wanted to see Star-Lord and them kind of flirt a little bit because of how he looked at her and said he picked a nice set of dark eyes.
Yeah, that was cute. It was.
I kind of was hoping they were going to go that route, but they just stayed in a very family-related area, and I think that's fine too. But how can you say that little dog that Adam Warlock had wasn't funny? That dog was adorable and hilarious.
It was a goddamn
Yeah.
dog.
It was a dog.
It was
to
an
me.
alien
I saw a
dog. It was an alien dog.
It was an alien dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did love the cutscene to see the King Groot.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
The King Groot at the end, when it shook off that dirt and you saw it was Groot, I damn near lost myself. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Groot spoke. Groot spoke something other than I am Groot.
Well, actually, no. I think what we were finally hearing was what everyone else hears when he says, I am Groot.
Yeah.
We finally became part of the family and we understood them.
Okay.
Just like Gamora.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finally understood him when she felt part of the group.
Yeah. And this was a good payoff from the first film. Remember, he said, "We are Groot," when he sacrificed himself to protect the Guardians in the first film. So it's a good payoff.
No, most definitely. Jasmine, did you want to finish up?
Outside of that, I definitely give the movie a 6 because when I rethought about it, it's a good film, but I can think of a few other films above it, but it's still like top 5 for me. But it's not top 3 when it comes to the Marvel movies. Because let's just be honest, Endgame is top 1, maybe. For me.
So okay, wait a minute. So you're saying that you're putting this movie, you're putting Volume 3 in your top 5?
It's in my top 5 because of how it did a really good job out of the ending conclusion of films. It's definitely a top 5 in that list of films. Not my top 5 of the overall MCU, but the top 5 of the ending conclusions of these stories.
You mean there was a trilogy, not 5 films?
No.
Infinity War
my
Endgame?
list has 5 movies in it. It has 5 films in it. But it's, out of the trilogies of each one of these original stories, them finally coming to a conclusion. It's number 5 for sure, but it's good.
Okay. Weren't there only 5?
Well,
yeah, Thor Love and Thunder is definitely 6. I'll say.
Oh, hey. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jazz. Thank you for making that.
It's not high up there, but
okay. That's fine. No, you're good. And listen,
I enjoyed the movie very much. And it definitely has rewatchability to it. And maybe if I watch it a second time, it may go higher. Who knows?
Good point. I think you're really right about that. I think that's something that I know I put out, I experience all the time. That, it does sometimes really affect the way you look at it when you do wait a little bit and watch it again. But no, Jasmine, it was great to have you on the review. We really appreciate it. I know you got to take off. Thank you for being here and whatnot and joining us. And we'll send you off with love. And I will see you on Sunday.
I can't wait to see you on Sunday.
Right, for part 1 of our Mandalorian Season 3 recap and breakdown, which will be fucking outstanding.
I can't wait.
In the meantime, good night, dear. I'll talk to you later.
Night, you guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Au revoir.
Kyle, my friend.
Yes.
Again, holding it down.
So the last act of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is it's packed. There's a lot. Everything on Counter Earth is it's either great action sequences or it's absolutely hilarious. Obviously, their arrival on Counter Earth and everything until they get to the High Evolutionaries headquarters / ship is hilarious. Get in the effing car, Nebula, all of that, great. My favorite scene in that though is when Star-Lord and Groot really say, "Okay, we've had enough," and they go off in the fight in that scene. Groot dropping all the weapons, having Star-Lord special pistols, and that whole sequence is really well done. And then you have the fun of the aspect of you've got Drax and Mantis and the Nebula going to look for them and how that all pans out. You also have the kind of the heart-wrenching moment for Adam Warlock where he goes to save his mother and she's killed. And this is also something to where what comes out of this too is, which I think is actually a good character development for the High Evolutionary, is the fact we just truly see how evil and diabolical he is, because here's this whole planet and race he created, but because it's not perfect in his idea of what should be perfect, he commits genocide. I mean, just flat out destroys an entire planet and population because it's not to his standards. So I think that shows you the evil, just how evil the High Evolutionary was and how just bat shit crazy he was as well. With that too, I think we also have one of the most emotional scenes in the movie when we have Rocket in the kind of like the afterlife going through what he's there.
Oh yeah.
But also when they first bring him back and you see how Quill reacts to finding out he's alive, and then how Nebula reacts when she finds out about it as well, because you brought up a good point, Andres. Her and Rocket were the only two Guardians to survive the events of the Infinity War.
Yep.
And had all that extra time to develop a relationship that the other Guardians didn't have. So I think that was a key point that plays out well there. Then you get into obviously your big Marvel Cinematic Universe end fight scene. And I think this is actually one of the better ones they've done in a while. I think the scene in the hallway is great because it gives everybody an individual moment with their own unique fighting styles and everything. And it gives everybody just that moment. You even get a great moment on Nowhere when Nowhere gets invaded, where Kraglin steps up, finally figures out Yondu's arrow, and we get it lets them have a great little cameo by Michael Rooker as Yondu in the film.
Yeah.
And so I think that was very fun.
I do. I agree.
We have the emotional moment for Rocket when he sees all the animals and then confronts the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary is dead, guys. He has the face ripped off. He stops breathing. He's killed in the explosion. He's dead. At least this version of the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary. There could be other versions of him.
We're not going to see him. We're not going to see him back anyway. But I don't think he died.
Yeah. No, I think he went to the Rocket. Made sure he went to the great big evolutionary science in space, and it didn't end well for the High Evolutionary.
Well, but Gamora stabbed him as well. So Well,
and that was it. That was the thing. You had the Rocket fight him, but then you see how much more the great moment of them all taking their shot at the High Evolutionary. And you realize how powerful, however powerful the High Evolutionary is, he wasn't as powerful as them as a family and as a team working together. So I think that was a good stand-up point. And again, a lot of emotional moments within this area. And like I said, I think one of the best ending fight sequences to a Marvel movie in a while. And then to have the closure and how to have this movie end like it did, where there's a moment throughout this third act where every character really takes a step in growth, whether it's Mantis realizing how she's always been subservient to somebody and needs to go find herself, but also when she realizes how wrong she was for calling Drax stupid. And both her and Nebula, when they have that fight and conversation, and then we see where Drax, yes, he might not be the smartest guy on the block, but he's the father. And you know how he cares for those children, things like that. So we see that growth in Drax. We see obviously the growth in Nebula, and I'm going to get to that in a second because I feel very strongly about what they did with Nebula.
I do too. I think she was my goat, like for the film out of the Guardians. She was my goat.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think even you have the moments where Quill and he accepts, and I think that's the whole point of the ending of the Guardians of the Galaxy, with at least this run of James Gunn, is that he's taken these characters on this journey, and we've seen them grow through not only the Guardians films but other films they've appeared in. I love the mid credit sequence. I love seeing some of these characters that they've put in with the Guardians because it's right from the comic book run of Abnett
Yeah.
Lanning, where Warlock was a member. Phyla was a member. We don't really get much of her in this film, but she was a key member of that run in the comics of the Abnett and Lanning run. As was Cosmo, and of course the large size Groot, and of course the fact that we will be seeing the legendary Star-Lord again. I think that makes the most sense because I think Chris Pratt knows he doesn't. Chris Pratt is smart enough not to give up on this character and this franchise, and I think there's some upcoming projects that you could easily see Star-Lord in. I don't think we're done with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think we're done with James Gunn's iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that there was a couple of the actors who we won't see again in these roles, at least anytime soon, because they're done with them. I don't think you'll ever see Batista as Drax again unless the money is just ridiculous. I think Zoe Saldana, once she gets a break from being in every major franchise in Hollywood, you could see her maybe make a return as Gamora. I think you'll see Rocket again. I think you're going to see Nebula again. I think you're going to see that some of those iterations of Guardians of the Galaxy again, but it's going to be a while. I think they have other characters they want to focus on. But I think what you're going to see with Star-Lord is either him appearing in another film, maybe getting his own show, maybe even doing like you talk about Cyber. If they do the comic, maybe doing it as a Disney Plus show, and having Pratt do that. But yeah, Pratt's not going to leave that role anytime soon. And I think for me though, to the character that was the MVP of this movie, to me, it's close between Rocket and Nebula. But I'm going to say this about Nebula: there is no character in the MCU from introduction to where their finality is that had a bigger growth, development, and character arc than Nebula.
What about Loki?
I think she outshines Loki because Loki was already known. Here's the other thing: Loki was already pretty known and established with comic book fans. Nebula really wasn't, as most of the Guardian characters weren't. So you're taking a character who a lot of people didn't know about and just having them go on this trip of self-discovery, redemption, coming to terms with what happened to them, and finding a family and finding happiness and finding their place in the universe. And I think that what Karen Gillan did as that character, and I've been a Karen Gillan fan since her days of Doctor Who, was just absolutely phenomenal. And I think it is one of the most developed characters that the MCU has produced to this point. And I don't think it's there's a couple of characters you could maybe talk about, but I don't think it's even that close. I think Nebula was the MVP of this film. I think when you look at the Guardians trilogy overall, I think it's the second best trilogy of films in the MCU. I think when I look at it is, I think as a whole of the three films together, it's maybe one of the most important trilogies. But if you're I think because for me personally, Guardians Volume 2 wasn't quite as good as Volume 1 or Volume 3. Where I look at it to where, in my personal opinion, the best trilogy of films is the three Captain America films.
Of course. What are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. So, but this is a very close second, and I'll be very curious to see. Like I said, I will obviously see Chris Pratt as Star-Lord sooner than later. But I think before it's all said and done with the major Avengers films that are coming down the line, we will see the Guardians again, probably in those films.
Well, and everyone has their own opinions. We all have our own. We all like certain things.
Yeah.
I thought Nebula. Well, honestly, for me, I really thought that what Karen Gillan did with that character across the span of her playing it, the fact that she was in Endgame and that she got as much scene time as she did in Endgame, obviously shows you that that she's popular, right? So, but either way, so bottom line, guys, final thoughts. Right, Andres, hold on. Final thoughts, whatever you got left. Anything that we didn't mention you want to say? Final rating? right? If anything changed, if it's the same shit, just tell me. But have at it. Andres?
Yeah, MVP and just
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
whole
Give me your goat. Give me your goat character too.
I think we should not be sleeping for this character. I think MVP should be Mantis. I think she
Ah, good
was,
call.
I like Rocket, but personally, I think Mantis really really grow
She
for
grew.
me
Yeah.
over
Oh yeah.
for me over the years. I think her becoming we didn't get much of the sister and brother thing for Pierre, but I think because Starlord still being here, I think we could see more of that now, which
I
is
think you're
great.
right. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think like huge kudos to Palm Clementov, the actress that plays Mantis. Like she really
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
a great job of making a Mantis feel alive, like an actual person, and handling the comedy and like the physical comedy, all that. Like as Cyber mentioned about the bug like squash to the floor. It's so hilarious, but she nails that.
Is it her
Uh,
first name? Is it her first name? Porn.
Palm,
Oh, okay.
POM, not porn, sir. Oh, thank you, Cyber. Clementif. Oh God, these names are very difficult. Anyway,
Clemtiff.
Well,
Clementif.
you notice I didn't even try to pronounce the fucking High Evolutionary's actor's name. Fuck that.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
HR, I'm sorry, that actor. I know he's from Peacemaker. He's a great actor. But yeah, I love Mantis, and I think where we left her off for this movie was really great. Her just go into her own direction, be her own person. It makes a lot of sense. And again, I really cried when Mantis has to say goodbye to his friend Mantis, and it really was touching
It
for
was
me.
special. It was very special. Their relationship and their dynamic was very cute.
Yeah, and that was let me add that as the MPP. Those two being the best
Ah,
pairing of any of the MCU, like Doctor Strange and Wanda. Like they were like that for the Guardians, which I like. Oh, and quickly, my favorite thing was Nebula saying to Drax, "You're not the destroyer. You're a
yes.
dad." That killed me. That made me cry, and I was like, "Oh no." That was great. Um, yeah, I agree with Kyle. This is the second best trilogy in the MCU after the Captain America trilogy, no doubt about it. Yeah, I ranking the three films of the Guardians, like the second, third, and the first are in my order there. So the first is still my favorite. The second favorite is the third, and then my least favorite is Volume 2. So anyway, I feel so bad now. I'm ashamed of Mantis, and I can't say her name right. Damn you, Jeff. And
I think you just want to bang Mantis, bro.
I mean, she's pretty in and out of that costume. So
In and
anyway,
out.
yeah, in and out. So yeah, hey, I dated 770 women over the last 7 decades. Remember, I'm a mutant. I'm immortal.
I
And
know you were the Weapon S program. I know.
yeah.
Does your rating change?
No. I still keep it a 9 and 10. I think this. Um,
You
as
called it
Jeff,
8. You called it 8 earlier.
no.
No,
I
I
called a
did.
9. No,
9. Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Thank you, Kyle.
that. Yeah. I like everyone's saying it's the best Endgame, best since the Endgame. I'm ranking the post Endgame films we have, Phase 4 to Phase 5. This is my second favorite MCU film after Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is still my favorite and personal favorite MCU film. Um, I think this movie was close to that. I think it handled the drama and comedy well compared to other MCU films. And if you look at, many people on the internet, I think universally people like this film compared to those other Phase projects. This movie delivered everything what you want for a summer superhero blockbuster. The drama, the fun, and just the overall excitement for a blockbuster, which is good.
Okay, most definitely. Cyberneticshark, sir. Final thoughts? Are we still in the 5 on the rating? What's your goat?
So my MVP is Groot. I absolutely love Groot in this. Like I said, I felt he was finally back to his full potential by this film. So I give him the MVP, and hands down, alone, the gun sequence where he pulls out all those guns is why he's getting the MVP. That was freaking awesome. Absolutely loved it. In a close second, most definitely Mantis and Nebula are tied for second place for MVPs. Both of them have evolved very amazingly, especially Nebula, and well done. And overall, final thoughts would be, once again, like I said, I felt there was goods and bads. I'm still sticking with my 5. And I didn't see any changes to my thought process on it. Like I said, there was definitely things I loved, and there was definitely things I did not like about it. And surprisingly, now this is going to blow you away, Jeff. I actually, Wakanda Forever has gone up a notch in my book.
Really? Wow.
Yes, I'm so happy to hear that. That's great.
You gotta be kidding me. You tell me that Wakanda Forever was better than Volume 3? What the fuck?
Yes, because the Power Ranger and Predator was funner to me than what this was.
Hey, look, the Power Rangers are fucking awesome, man. All right, and the Predator, let's not even get me started. We can have another hour segment on the Predator. The Predator is fucking dope. I'm sorry, but like you can't go wrong with the Predator. Fucking dope ass character. You can't inserting the Predator to the Wakanda Forever was genius, pure genius. It must have been that TrueKnowledge maybe or somebody that made that happen. But either way, Kyle, pardon me. No, it is you, Kyle. I apologize. Your GOAT, and I'm assuming your rating is going to hold too.
Yeah, my rating is definitely going to hold. I think that this is a very solid addition to the MCU and one of the better films they've done in a while. If Endgame and Infinity War are 10s, this is a little bit below that. I think 8 is a good place for it to fall, because I think one of the things with this film too that actually helped it a lot for me was because it's James Gunn's final film in the MCU, and they kind of just let him cook. He doesn't have a lot of weight of carrying a lot of storylines that were happening within the MCU in this film. He just got, and I think this film greatly benefited from that, because I think that if you look at Phase 4, I think that's been some of the problem with Phase 4 is I think some of these projects have just been trying to carry the weight of being interconnected and so tied in with the MCU that they've kind of in some of the cases cracked a little under the pressure of it. And so I think that's where this film really benefits from that. I think that the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise is, when we go back and look at it, is going to be one of the greatest accomplishments that the Marvel Studios did, and what James Gunn has did, because they took the most obscure characters and made them immensely popular. I mean, unless you were a diehard comic fan, you had no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before the first film came out. So, great work by Gunn. It was a interesting ride to get to this film, considering he was fired at one point and then brought back. All the COVID delays. This film was actually supposed to come out before, or actually it was supposed to come out as the first film after Endgame. I think it's actually worked out better that it's coming out now. But I think if you're going to talk about the MVP of the Guardians, as far as all 3 films and their experiences in the MCU, I think it's probably a tie between Rocket and Nebula, because I think those are the characters that really grew immensely. Star-Lord, we knew was going to be big because it was Chris Pratt, and he was the leader, and I think they did some good stuff with him. But throughout every appearance, Nebula grew, Rocket grew, or we learned something more about those characters, and I think that's what worked so well for those characters and why they're the MVP. It's the second best trilogy in the MCU, but in some ways, like I said, the Guardians of the Galaxy has been the emotional heart of the MCU since it started, and I don't see a change in that. And it will be interesting to see how the Marvel Universe is going forward without the Guardians being as much of an active part of it.
Most definitely. And again, we have no idea. I mean, my only thing is, Kyle, is that if they're really trying to head in the direction of trying to minimize things a little bit and slow things down and focus on quality, then I would think that would have to then affect this whole thing we had going on, we're going to end up with like fucking 10 different teams at some
No,
point, right?
I think that's definitely going. We're already seeing the effect of that with just how, and then you add in what's going on right now with the writer's strike, which has caused now Blade to be shut down. Production on Blade to be shut down. Production on Daredevil just
Blade's
shut
not
down.
coming out until 2031. No.
Yeah. Well, production on Daredevil Born Again just shut down because of it.
Great. Well,
so
let's be positive. Let's not Daredevil. I'm relying on Daredevil and Kingpin and whatnot, those characters to bring fucking the MCU back. So like basically, to some extent, I'm banking on them. But no, I mean I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now that I'm not gonna change anything really when it boils down to it. I'd say, well, maybe I will. I'd say the film for me is probably a solid. Again, I would say that I agree with Andres. I give it a 9. Right? I think it's a 9. I think it's fair. It's not a 10. It's not Endgame. It's not Infinity War at all. Not even close. It is not better than. It is not worse than fucking Wakanda Forever, baby. Unless you're goddamn like living in the fucking crack / Inception dimension or some shit or whatever that day. I don't even know. That's okay though, Cyber.
Opinions.
Opinions are that's right. Just as long as you don't tell me Love and Thunder is better too.
Yes, it is.
Oh God, come on now. Anyways, I'm gonna get you a T-shirt that says that. You can wear that publicly.
I will.
I know you will.
it might be just better for
I'm gonna get one that says Jeff is on crack.
That's okay. You know what? At this point, the way as much as I talk about it, I'm sure everybody probably thinks I'm on crack anyway. Would not surprise me. But I don't think I'm on crack, but you never know. Anyways, folks, we're done. We're out of here. We're gonna play door plugs to get the fuck out for the 3-hour mark. Kyle, Andres, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And it's good, always good to rock with the true believers. Shout out to Kevin. I'm glad that everything's going well with him and his wife, whatnot, everything, right? I know it's difficult, the situation and whatnot, but we're happy to see him again, hopefully sometime in the future. It'd be great to see you guys again together as a team.
Yep. Nope. He's enjoying the time, and yep, we'll get that to happen here sometime down the road. But it's always good to be back on the bleeding edge.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We got Star Wars stuff to do too. We got Ahsoka coming out, so we got lots of great stuff to look at and whatnot. I know you're very excited about that.
All right, well, lots of interesting things going on in Star Wars right now. Mando just wrapped up. I am really looking forward to Ahsoka. I think it might be one of the best Star Wars shows that Disney's ever done. I
do too. I agree with you. I think it could be. They're on a good string right now. Why wouldn't Ahsoka be good?
No, I think it might be right up there with like the early season or season 2 of The Mandalorian as far as the best stuff Disney's put out.
Yeah, no, most definitely. We'll see. But either way, folks, we got The Shining. Cyberneticshark will be moderating. Can't wait. Watch it tomorrow. Haven't seen it in 23 years. Friday evening. Oh wait, yeah, we have The Shining, don't we?
Yeah, I'm going to be in that.
As well. Oh, Andre's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Good, Cyber.
Yes, it is The Shining.
Okay, most definitely. I cannot wait. Can't wait to watch it. It's been so long. How long has it been since you watched The Shining? There, Kyle.
Oh God, it's got to be about 20 years.
That's what I said. Yep, it's got to be easily probably like 23, 24 years, I think, since I watched it. But either way, as far as I was mentioning, as far as the True Believers Marvel Cinematic Podcast, as you see right here, and I will let Kyle take over, we have known each other for quite a while and everything and whatnot, almost closely like from the start of the MCU Bleeding Edge, and we're happy and glad to still be collaborating with them. And Kyle, tell us please about the Fandom Network and True Believers.
Yep, the Fandom Podcast Network is a podcast network and YouTube channel where we try to cover a bit of everything. True Believers is our Marvel show where we cover everything. We just put out our Guardians of the Galaxy thoughts ourselves. We also have several other shows, including Union Federation, which covers everything Star Trek and the Orville. What a Piece of Junk, which is our Star Wars show, and we got some other fun stuff like Couch Potato Theater, where we take a movie that is one of those movies you might own it on many different formats, but when it pops on cable, you just kind of stop because you love that movie so much. As well as several other great shows on the network and like I said, we just try to give you a variance of popularity in fandom and try to give you a bit of everything. And we have a fun time doing it, and check it out. We can find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And if you want to listen to our audio podcast, you can find them on any of your major podcast catchers, including Podbean, iTunes, and iHeartRadio.
There you go. Thor: Love and Thunder, baby. My favorite MCU film ever. Gotta love it. Thank you, Taika. Appreciate you. I'm sure that Christian Bale does too. Now, as far as our friend Andres over here, who this guy gets so many YouTube channels and podcasts I can't even keep track, to be honest with you. So at that point, maybe he is the watcher. Who the fuck knows? But bottom line, Mr. Andres, as I screen share you or whatnot, please tell us what you've got going on right now on your multiple fucking YouTube channels and podcasts.
Sure. You want me to send you the link?
You sent it to me like 4 times.
Okay. So, all right. So yeah. So just like Kyle, I just posted a Guardians of the Galaxy spoiler cast in that channel. So check it out. I actually went back to do a retrospective / review. Recently, I did X2 X-Men United for this 20th anniversary. That was last week, and just today I just uploaded Iron Man 3 retrospective review. Check that out because last week as well it had a big 10th anniversary as well, May 3rd.
Oh my god, did Iron Man 3 get better?
Yeah, it's actually my top 10.
Oh great.
MCU ranking. I love Iron Man 3. If you love
I do too.
Yeah. So so right now I'm hoping to maybe put out a top 10 Iron Man villains list soon. I'll probably post it in this channel. But soon I'm gonna go on vacation, so I'm gonna post less. So just watch out for that. I'll come back in next Saturday or Sunday or something like that. But yeah, that's where I'm at now with my content.
All right, brother. I will pray for you so that you get laid while you're in London.
I'm gonna be with my mom, so I think.
Oh well, I don't know about. Okay then, well that'd be like some House of the Dragon type action. I don't know about that. So
yeah. Oh my god.
Anyways, I'm just messing. I'm joking around, man.
Oh my god,
I'm playing.
I just have a heart attack now.
I'm joking. I'm sorry. I should have said that. My bad, dude.
No, I'm joking too.
Cyberneticshark, did you think I was leaving you a lot out of this, man? Come on now. You're only the most highly identified one-name content creator that goes by the same name on every platform in history out there. So you are the Cyberneticshark. So I will pull up your stuff, sir. I will pull up your channel.
Yeah, hence why you come up with a moniker and you stick with it.
Well, what about Dick Pic Logic, baby? I'm telling you, I love it.
I know you do.
This is my YouTube channel. Just wait. I'm gonna have plugs too. Kyle, did I tell you I created a YouTube channel called Dick Pic Logic?
Sounds right up your alley.
It is. Exactly. Andres, you're gonna be a frequent guest. All right, Cyber, you tell me, brother. I saw you getting after it earlier today and whatnot, everything.
All right, people. So, if you enjoy me here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge, you should definitely go check out my solo content underneath Cyberneticshark. You'll find me pretty much on every single platform you can think of. Just today, I did a mini review of 300 Rise of an Empire, so definitely go check that out. Like I said, I'll be having my Guardians of the Galaxy review up soon. And we're smashing 647 now, so we're getting closer and closer to the 700 mark. So let's get us.
Oh no, he froze.
Those new subscribers and stuff like that. So you guys are awesome. You guys are rocking it. And you'll be seeing more little shorts coming up. Really haven't watched anything new lately, so thinking of ideas. So keep your eyes out and eyes peeled for new content on there. I've also come up with a new little thing for you guys too as well. Is a lot of films pre-1928 have started becoming public dominion. So I'm going to start doing some old classic kind of Mystery Science 3000 type of deal for you guys. So keep your eyes out for that coming up soon.
Were you planning on involving me in this, my friend?
Yes, don't worry, you
I was
will
gonna
be.
say, because we've only been talking about doing some kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000 type show for like how long now? Something like that, of that kind. Somebody needs to fucking do that kind of formula. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Love that show. Cyberneticshark, you are the best, my friend. You are the best co-host in history, other than Kevin at True Believers Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, of course. Nah, I'm just joking. I'll put you above him. Sorry, Kyle.
They're quite all right.
I'm sorry, but I love the guy.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
awesome. No, I love Kevin to death. I'm really happy for him. I very much am. He's one of the few people whose Facebook profiles actually follow and watches pictures and stuff and whatnot. Him and his wife and all that. They're very cute. They're very nice pictures. His wife's very attractive. She's very pretty. They seem like a very happy couple.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. I'm just sad for him at the same time for the bullshit. But thanks again, folks. As we're the 3-hour mark, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, good movie. All right. If you're the feds, go watch it. It's good. All right. We liked it, except for Cyber, who put Wakanda Forever first. And till then, till next time, Friday The Shining, 9:35 p.m. Eastern, 6:05 p.m. Pacific, for Kyle, for Andres, for Cyber, for myself. Peace out. God bless you. We'll see you next time. And hey, have a great weekend.
Hey. I said, excuse me, but you don't understand where I'm at. I was all around the world, on span, cross the map. I've been laying low and now it's time to pop up, bitch, I'm back. Now I'm a run.